Chapter 1920. Qinghu Mountain Range. Yu Haoran communicated with Wu Jingjun in the Domain Pagoda and retrieved the Avicii divine sword from his hands. With one sword in each hand, Yu Haoran gestured towards a Han Hao. Emperor's son-in-law, the Yuan Massacre godly sword, and the Avicii godly sword are the ultimate treasures of the Netherworld clan that were lost in ancient times. They also represent the dignity of the Netherworld clan's imperial family. I will take back these two ultimate treasures no matter what, even if I have to pay any price. A Han Hao took a deep breath when he saw the Yuan Massacre godly sword and Avicii godly sword in Yu Haoran's hands. He forcefully suppressed the thoughts of seizing them and ordered with a solemn expression. Therefore, the Emperor's son-in-law can now make a request to exchange the ultimate treasures for the godly swords. A Han Hao paused for a moment and specially reminded him, "Remember, it's any request." Yu Haoran only chuckled in response to a Han Hao's request. Then, he directly returned the Avicii godly sword to Wu Zhengjuan's hands and put the Yuan Massacre godly sword back into his storage ring. Then, he turned his head to look at the void to the east of the immortal tribulation, lightning punishment, reward with a hint of anticipation in his eyes. Although Yu Haoran didn't say anything, his action of putting away the Yuan Massacre godly sword and the Avicii godly sword had already indicated his refusal to exchange. This caused a Han Hao's heart to surge with intense killing intent. However, when he saw the primordial demon and primordial demon experts in front of him, as well as the two experts from Carefree Valley who were proficient in Formula Dao, a Han Hao knew that it was impossible to take back the divine sword from Yu Haoran with the help of the First Tribulation Supremes, Beiful, and the Hellhound. Therefore, he could only forcefully suppress the surging killing intent in his heart and retreat to Buffel's side. Then, he used the Netherworld clan's special secret method to secretly mobilize the army station in the desert to help him seize the Yuan Massacre godly sword and the Avicii godly sword. Perhaps it was because of Yu Haoran's overly sensitive perception, or perhaps it was because of his mocking of the two princes, as well as his humiliation of Nayland Zizan, which intimidated many experts hiding in the void of the Qinghu Mountain Range. Therefore, just as Yu Haoran's gaze shifted to the void on the eastern side of the Qinghu Mountain Range, 9 powerhouses in different attire walked out of the void. Shunjie and Mo Hao's eyes were filled with intense hatred when they saw the 9 top powers walking out from the edge of Qinghu Mountain Range. At the same time, a Han Hao and Buffel's eyes also flashed with a hint of fear. The 9 experts who walked out of the void were Half-Tribulation Supremes from the Blue Dragon clan, the White Tiger clan, and the Vermilion Bird clan. That was right. Not only were the 9 experts in green, white, and red robes at the Half-Tribulation Supreme's realm, but the 3 leading experts of each clan were also at the peak of the Second Tribulation Supreme's realm. This also caused Shunjie and Mo Hao, who had a deep hatred for the 4 Guardian clans, to immediately use a special secret method to mobilize the Half-Tribulation Supremes in their clans to help. Junior Yu Haoran greets the seniors from the Guardian clans. Yu Haoran could vaguely guess that the Guardian clans had a different attitude toward him when he saw that there was no one from the Black Tortoise clan among the 9 Half-Tribulation Supremes. He couldn't help but cup his hands in greeting nervously. The 9 Half-Tribulation Supremes from the Guardian clans didn't respond to Yu Haoran's greeting. They didn't even look at him. Their eyes were filled with fierce killing intent as they looked directly at Yusiki, who had just advanced to the 8th grade Martial God realm and was still receiving the Immortal Tribulation Thunder Punishment Reward. The other party's arrogant and disrespectful attitude had already made Yu Haoran very unhappy. At the same time, they actually dared to have such strong, killing intent toward his sister. This made Yu Haoran burn with anger, and he also completely sentenced the fate of the 9 experts from the Guardian clans to death in his heart. However, he didn't act rashly because he wasn't a match for any of them when he couldn't control the other party's fate. At the same time, there were less than 30 seconds left before Thaling recovered from his injuries. Therefore, he forcefully suppressed the raging anger in his heart and looked toward the void on the west side of Qinghu Mountain Range. He wanted to force the last batch of opponents hiding in the dark to show themselves and delay the last 30 seconds. Just like the 9 experts from the Guardian clans. When Yu Haoran looked toward the void on the west side of Qing, Hu Mountain Range, 17 top experts at the 9th grade Martial God Realm and the Half-Tribulation Supremes walked out of the void. Shangguan Clan, Zhou Clan, Fan Clan, Sima Clan, Xiandao School, Flowing Cloud Sect, and Rogue Cultivators Alliance. Looking at the 17 experts who walked out of the void on the west side of Qing, Hu Mountain Range, Yu Haoran gnashed his teeth and said their origins. At the same time, he paid attention to the movements of the 9 experts from the Guardian clans to see if they were attracted by the new experts. Unfortunately, the 9 Half-Tribulation Supremes from the Guardian clans completely ignored the 17 experts who walked out of the west side of Qing, Hu Mountain Range. They walked toward the reward of the Immortal Tribulation Thunder Punishment at the same time and took out their respective natal celestial weapons. Qing Feng appeared beside Yu Haoran in a flash. Holding his natal sword tightly, he took a deep breath and reminded Yu Haoran, "Junior Martial Brother Yu, I will use half of my potential to perform the besiegement defense sword technique created by my teacher. It will temporarily trap the other party for 1 to 2 seconds. You take the opportunity to bring Miss Siki back to the Prince Mansion immediately and use the defense of the Prince Mansion to resist the other party." Yu Haoran directly reached out and pressed Qing Feng's shoulder to stop him from overdrawing his potential. With a strong, confident smile on his face, Yu Haoran instructed him to continue guarding the other side of the Immortal Tribulation Thunder Punishment reward and guard against the sneak attacks of Nailan Xing and Nailan Xing from the Carefree Valley, as well as the experts from the Ancient Demon Clan and the Ancient Demon Clan. When Qing Feng returned to his original position, the smile on Yu Haoran's face was instantly replaced by a gloomy expression. At this moment, there were still 20 seconds before Thaling's injury would recover. In a situation where he couldn't get Thaling's help for the time being, he could only take the risk and use a secret technique from the Destiny Stone Tablet's memory inheritance. This technique overdrew 90% of his potential and 80% of his lifespan in exchange for a heaven-defying secret technique that allowed him to temporarily possess the strength of a second tribulation supremacy. He didn't care about the overdrawing of his lifespan. As long as his cultivation could smoothly advance to the Martial God Realm, he could not only make up for the overdrawn vitality, but also obtain an immortal lifespan. The only thing he couldn't accept now was the overdrawing of his potential. After all, he still needed to use the potential and accumulation that he could continue to improve so that he could use the baptism of the Immortal Tribulation Thunder Punishment reward to break through to the complete 10th stage realm in his body and cultivation. However, in the face of the danger that his sister was about to encounter, he had to be willing to pay the price even if the result was unacceptable. Chapter 1921. In the Qing Hu Mountain Range. As Half-Tribulation Supremes, they had clearly sensed Yu Haoran overdrawing his potential and lifespan in advance. However, they did not immediately stop him, nor did they immediately launch an attack. The reason for that was because they felt that Yu Haoran, whose cultivation was only at the peak of rank 9 Martial Emperor, would at the very most only possess the strength of a peak rank 3 Martial God, even if he were to exhaust all of his potential and lifespan. A 3rd grade Martial God was no match for them at all, so it was not worth their energy and time to pay attention to him. However, when Yu Haoran's imprints merged into his body and his aura surpassed that of a 3rd grade Martial God and reached the early 4th grade Martial God, they were slightly surprised. However, this level of strength increase was also not worth their attention, so they did not stop approaching Yusiki. When Yu Haoran's aura reached the peak of 7th grade Martial God, their surprise was replaced by surprise, but they still did not stop. When Yu Haoran's aura reached the peak of 9th grade Martial God, their surprise was replaced by shock, and they began to slow down. When Yu Haoran's aura reached the peak of 1st Tribulation Supremes, their shock was replaced by seriousness. They completely stopped approaching Yusiki and stared at Yu Haoran, whose strength continued to increase. Breakthrough. Affected by Emperor Wu's complete 10th grade martial god cultivation, the secret technique that could overdraw 90% of his potential and 80% of his lifespan in exchange for the strength of a peak Second Tribulation Supremes suddenly weakened when his strength reached the middle Second Tribulation Supremes, and completely stopped when his strength reached the high Second Tribulation Supremes. This made Yu Haoran very unwilling to accept, so he gritted his teeth and continued to overdraw 10% of his lifespan, and finally succeeded in obtaining the strength of a peak Second Tribulation Supremes. At this time, there were only 9 seconds left before Thowling recovered from his injuries. Taking out the immortal trapping sword from his storage ring, Yu Haoran looked at the 9 half-tribulation Supremes of the Guardian family with a cold and emotionless look in his eyes. Jisha, go test this kid's strength. See if the secret technique he used just now can really allow him to cross 1.5 realms. The strongest expert from the Blue Dragon clan turned his head and instructed Jisha, who was at the peak of the First Tribulation Supreme realm. If this lad has the strength of a Second Tribulation Supreme being, then let him live for the time being so that we can obtain the secret method to increase our strength quickly. If this brat doesn't possess the strength of a Second Tribulation Supreme being, then send him to the Western Paradise and let him accompany his sister on the road to the Yellow Springs. Yes, Ninth Elder. After nodding in response, Jisha, who was holding a natal sword at the peak of the Divine Realm, shook his body slightly and instantly appeared in front of Yu Haoran. Then, as the powerful aura of a First Tribulation Supreme realm directly enveloped Yu Haoran, the natal sword directly pierced toward his heart. However, just as the powerful aura of a First Tribulation Supreme realm was about to envelop Yu Haoran, and just as the tip of the natal sword was about to reach his heart, the immortal trapping sword, which was emitting a sharp sword aura, pierced between Jisha's eyebrows at a speed that crossed the barriers of time and space. Then, with the strength of a Second Tribulation Supreme realm and the help of the aura of a special rule, the tip of the immortal trapping sword quickly pierced through the strong defense of the opponent's physical body and the defense of the sea of consciousness. Then, it directly strangled the divine soul that was about to escape from the sea of consciousness. Using a special sleeping secret technique, it was not easy for Jisha to survive the long years of the Middle Ages and near ancient times. However, before he could enjoy the happy life after waking up, his soul was completely scattered. This made Jisha look at Yu Haoran with resentment, as if he had died with his eyes wide open. At this time, there were only 5 seconds left before Thowling recovered from his injuries. Ignoring Jisha, whose eyes were wide open, Yu Haoran stretched out his left hand and flicked away the natal sword that was pressed against his heart. Then, he used his mind to store Jisha's body into the victor. Then, he raised his head and looked at the strongest experts of the Blue Dragon clan, the White Tiger clan, and the Vermilion Bird clan. His cold eyes revealed a trace of provocation. The reason why Yu Haoran dared to take the initiative to provoke the 3 Second Tribulation Supreme Realm experts was that when he killed Jisha, he suddenly discovered that the secret technique recorded on the Destiny Stone Tablet could connect to a trace of the Destiny Law energy in the Destiny Stone Tablet. This was also an important reason why he could pierce Jisha's eyebrows in advance and easily break through the defense of his physical body and sea of consciousness. One move. With just one move, Jisha, whose cultivation had reached the First Tribulation Supreme realm, was easily killed by Yu Haoran. This made the faces of the 8 experts of the Guardian clans instantly turn gloomy. At the same time, their eyes revealed a look of greed. This was because in the countless years of inheritance of the Guardian clans, there had never been any secret technique that could allow a warrior of the Emperor Wu realm to directly possess the strength and attack power of a Second Tribulation Supreme realm expert in a short period of time. If the Guardian clans could obtain this secret technique, not only could they increase the success rate of the plan that they had prepared for countless years, but they could also easily resist the attack of the 3 Spirit Destroyers and Destiny's Child. In fact, it was not only the 8 experts of the Guardian clans who were greedy. The other experts at the scene also desired to obtain the secret technique that Yu Haoran had just used to increase his strength. Therefore, several Half-Tribulation Supreme Realm experts consciously approached the battlefield quietly, hoping to snatch Yu Haoran at the most critical moment. Sensing the greed in the eyes of the 8 Half-Tribulation Supreme Realm experts, Yu Haoran couldn't help but sneer and take the initiative to attack. He hoped to use the secret technique to further sense the destiny law contained in the Destiny Stone Tablet, and use it to increase his perception of the law and law, as well as his own accumulation. You're courting death. Seeing that Yu Haoran, who was originally like an ant, actually dared to take the initiative to attack, a feeling of provocation and humiliation made the strongest expert of the Blue Dragon clan immediately burn with rage. After he shouted with a gloomy expression, he clenched his right fist and immediately swung out a lower sovereign fist technique. Destroy! Without using any profound sword technique, Yu Haoran relied on the energy of the Destiny Law in the Destiny Stone Tablet. At the same time, the tip of the celestial trapping sword in his hand directly pierced the iron fist formed by the fist technique. Boom! As the tip of the celestial trapping sword collided with the iron fist, a deafening roar immediately rang out. Accompanied by the deafening roar, the iron fist that was pierced by the tip of the sword directly exploded. Boom! Chapter 1922. In the Qinghu Mountain Range, Yu Haoran didn't show any signs of panic when facing the sneak attack of the White Tiger clan's strongest expert. The power of the dual laws of flash and speed allowed him to easily dodge the attack of the sword Qi condensed by the sword technique. The celestial trapping sword in his hand slashed out a sharp sword Qi, directly slashing towards the vital point of the White Tiger clan's strongest expert. Puff! Puff! But at this moment, the sneak attack of the Vermilion Bird clan's strongest expert and the other 5 First Tribulation Supreme experts simultaneously reached more than 10 vital parts of his body. Although he was able to dodge and counterattack quickly by relying on the power of laws of flash and speed, and even successfully killed a First Tribulation Supreme powerhouse of the Vermilion Bird clan, he was still unable to avoid all of the attacks because he was outnumbered and didn't have any advantage in terms of strength. In the end, his back and lower abdomen were heavily pierced by the divine weapons, and golden blood flowed out. At this moment, there were only 3 seconds left before Thaling's injury would recover. Using the power of the 2 laws of flash and speed, together with the power of the law of destiny contained in the Destiny Stone Tablet, Yu Haoran barely escaped from the encirclement formed by the opponents and prepared to launch another attack. But at this moment, the 2 Half-Tribulation Supreme experts from Ancient Demon Clan used the speed of the black wings on their backs to instantly appear in front of him. Their natal swords, burning with black flames in their hands, were aimed at his heart and right shoulder. Fortunately, whether it was the Guardian Clan's experts or the 2 Ancient Demon Clan's experts, their ultimate goal was to capture Yu Haoran alive. They wanted to obtain the secret technique that could increase their strength from his head, and not really wanted to kill him. Therefore, even if his heart and right shoulder didn't avoid the sneak attack of the Demon Clan's experts, the injuries they suffered in the end weren't fatal. However, the space between his eyebrows was an important place in the sea of consciousness and the soul. The instant injury caused Yu Haoran's soul to be in a daze. At this moment, there were only 2 seconds left before Thaling's injury would recover. When facing the attack of a Half-Tribulation Supreme expert, Yu Haoran didn't use any means that could weaken his opponent's divine power and soul power, or cut off his bloodline and nomological senses. Instead, he overdrew a large amount of his lifespan and potential in exchange for the strength of a peak Second Tribulation Supreme. After witnessing Yu Haoran's actions, the Black Dragon and the White Spirit Tiger immediately realized that the secret technique was only effective against cultivators below the peak 9th grade martial god realm. Therefore, the Black Godly Dragon and the White Spirit Tiger, who were not too interested in the secret technique to improve their strength, immediately targeted Yu Siki, who was trying to break through to the 9th grade martial god realm. Although Yu Haoran didn't suffer any fatal injuries, The powerful impact caused by the sneak attack of the two demon powerhouses made him uncontrollably take 5 steps back. At this moment, the 4 First Tribulation Supreme experts from the Shangwan clan, the Rogue Cultivators Alliance, the Flowing Clouds sect, and the Xiandao school appeared behind him in an instant. Their palm and fist attacks were directly aimed at the vital points on his back. Originally, Yu Haoran could have avoided the sneak attack of the 4 First Tribulation Supreme experts by relying on the power of the law of flash and speed, but he didn't do so. Because he saw the white spiritual tiger from the ancient demon clan entangled Qing Feng, and the black godly dragon directly attacked the reward of the immortal tribulation. At this moment, there was only 1 second left before Thaling's injury would recover. Puff! After withstanding the sneak attack of the 4 First Tribulation Supreme experts and spitting out 9 mouthfuls of blood, Yu Haoran's face was as pale as paper. His eyes were scarlet, and terrifying, murderous intent rose. Then, with the help of the secret technique he was using, he directly mobilized the energy of the law of destiny contained in the Destiny Stone tablet and activated the profound law of life and death that he had comprehended. Life, death, death. The moment the profound law of life and death was activated, Yu Haoran stretched out his finger and pointed at the black godly dragon, who was charging into the reward of the immortal tribulation. Then, a special energy that transcended the barriers of time and space merged into the black godly dragon's body before it could hurt Yusiki. This is because the attack formed by the profound law of life and death was too fast. The black godly dragon couldn't dodge in time by the time it discovered it. It could only watch as the special energy formed by the profound law merged into its body. Originally, considering that Yu Haoran's cultivation was at the peak of the 9th stage, Emperor Wu's understanding of the profound law of life and death was definitely not deep enough. The power that could be formed in the end would definitely be ordinary. Therefore, the black godly dragon planned to kill its important target, Yusiki, first, and then find a way to force out the profound law power that had merged into its body. However, just as it raised its clenched fist and was about to use a powerful fist technique, the life essence in its body was rapidly draining away, causing its expression to change involuntarily. After a living being broke through the mysteries of life and death and successfully ascended to the martial god realm, they would obtain an immortal lifespan. However, if one wanted to maintain an immortal lifespan, they would need to constantly maintain a sufficient amount of life essence in their body to nourish their divine body and soul. If the amount of life essence in their body was insufficient, not only would it affect the strength of martial gods and supremes, it would also deprive them of their seemingly immortal lifespan. This was one of the important reasons why supremes would do their best to hide in the boundless void, where the spiritual energy of the world was abundant. However, the profound law of life and death that Yu Haoran had just used could not only greatly reduce the life essence in the divine body and soul, but the rate at which the life essence was draining away was also severely affecting the maintenance of one's lifespan. Therefore, the decisive black godly dragon immediately gave up on the idea of killing Yusiki. While suppressing the profound law power that was causing the life essence in its body to drain away with all its might, it turned around and quickly left the reward of the immortal tribulation. Yu Haoran, leave the rest to me. Although he had successfully forced back the black godly dragon that wanted to kill Yusiki with the profound law of life and death, Yu Haoran was unable to dodge or counterattack in time against the combined attacks of the 7 Protector clans and the 2 Primordial Demon clan experts. He could only watch as over a dozen powerful attacks landed heavily on him. Just as the attacks were about to land on Yu Haoran, a dark yellow barrier of energy appeared out of nowhere and successfully blocked the attacks. At the same time, a Thaling's icy voice rang out in his sea of consciousness. Whether it was the secret technique of the Destiny Steel or the heavy injuries he had suffered earlier, they both greatly affected his mind and soul. As a result, Yu Haoran almost fainted when he heard the Thaling's voice. Chapter 1923. In the Qing Hu mountain range. Under the premise of not harming Yu Haoran's life as much as possible, the 13 experts did not use too much of their strength in the attack just now. Therefore, the 13 powerhouses were not surprised at all when the dark yellow energy barrier appeared out of nowhere and successfully blocked their joint attack. When they mobilized more divine power and soul power, intending to continue to injure Yu Haoran, a terrifying murderous aura that froze the entire Qing Hu mountain range caused the expressions of the 13 experts who were about to attack to change. Nalan Xing and her elders, who had not made a move until now, also changed. Ahan Ho and Buffle, who had received news that the army was about to arrive, also changed their expressions. The spirits of 3 extinguishers, who were observing the Qing Hu mountain range through the heavens consciousness, also changed their expressions. This was because only the murderous aura of a true supreme sovereign expert could freeze the entire Qing Hu mountain range in an instant and strike fear into the hearts of half-tribulation sovereigns. After his godly soul temporarily took control of his body, Faling carefully examined Yu Haoran's condition. After overdrawing more than 90% of his life essence, Yu Haoran was left with less than 1,000 years of lifespan. After overdrawing more than 90% of his potential, not only did Yu Haoran's strength drop to first stage martial great master, but it also almost destroyed his foundation to break through to the martial god realm and the sovereign realm in the future. His Dantian and Sea of Consciousness had been severely injured 9 times. Not only was his Dantian unable to continue condensing divine power, but his Sea of Consciousness was also on the verge of collapsing. Ever since he reincarnated, no matter what danger he encountered, no matter how powerful the enemies he faced were, even in the most dangerous wizard god space and Whitebone City, even in the Void Mirror and Sword Principle Fate, which were both innate cardinal treasures, Yu Haoran had never encountered such a tragic situation. This made Faling furious. At the same time, his body emitted a terrifying, murderous aura that froze the entire Qing Hu mountain range in an instant. "All of you must die," Faling said in a frosty voice, his eyes filled with murderous intent as he looked at everyone present. Although no one knew why Yu Haoran could emit the murderous aura of a supreme master, considering that he could use a special secret method to directly obtain the strength of a second tribulation supreme master with Emperor Wu's cultivation at the peak of level 9, no one present dared to underestimate his change. The 13 half-moving, supreme being experts who had participated in the encirclement earlier quickly retreated a certain distance. Then, using the profound mysteries of the laws that they had comprehended, they began to launch probing attacks. After sweeping his gaze across the crowd, Faling raised his head to look at the sky above the mountain range and said coldly, "Spirit Destroyer 3, if you also want to kill Yusiki who cultivates the mantra of the Great Oblivion, then please show yourself. If that's not the case, then immediately disperse the will of the heavens you're controlling and stop spying on the situation here." In a nameless valley at the border of the southern and eastern regions. Who is he? Sensing that Yu Haoran's gaze could directly penetrate the barrier of the void and see the will of the heavens, and through the will of the heavens, he was paying attention to her. This frightened Fanqing, and she could not help but want to know his origin. Silva Moon, who was also frightened, looked directly at Burning Sun, whose eyebrows were slightly furrowed. Among the 7 primordial treasures at the beginning of the world, the space-time victor's Faling ranked 3rd is Venerable Purple Spirit, who is respected by millions of creatures. He is also one of the 9 supreme masters who had the highest chance of reaching the immortal realm in ancient times. In the face of Fanqing's inquiry and Silver Moon's gaze, Burning Sun looked at Yu Haoran through the will of the heavens and said with a complicated expression, "Sizzle." After hearing Burning Sun's introduction, Silver Moon and Fanqing could not help but gasp. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. The device spirit of the space-time victor, Venerable Purple Spirit, who had the ability to manipulate the rules of space-time, was not only an idol to these special creatures, but also one of the few existences who could directly hurt them. "What should we do next, Burning Sun?" After the shock, Silver Moon wanted to know Burning Sun's attitude toward venerable purple spirit. Would he take the risk to attack or choose to temporarily retreat? Temporarily retreat and try to reconcile. After a simple reply, Burning Sun immediately closed his eyes and controlled the will of the heavens, intending to have a simple communication with venerable purple spirit. Thowling's words just now made the dozen or so experts who were about to use the occult stop one after another. They looked up at the void above the mountain range with vigilance. Alas, just as Thowling's warning faded away, a sigh suddenly came from the void of the mountain range. Then a black, indifferent eye slowly emerged from the place where the sigh came from. When they saw the black eye emerge from the void of the mountain range, the dozen or so expert from the ancient demon clan, ancient devil clan, and ancient underworld clan only showed a trace of fear in their eyes. However, for the experts from the Shangwan clan, Carefree Valley, Xiandao School, and other forces that have been passed down since the Middle Ages, besides the fear in their eyes, there was also a strong sense of dread. Looking at Yu Haoran, who had no trace of fear in his eyes, the powerful spirit in Yu Haoran's body, and the victor, who was emitting the power of the rules of space-time in Yu Haoran's sea of consciousness, the black eye invited with a complicated expression. If you have time, please come to the nameless valley on the border of the Southern Territory and the Eastern Territory for a chat. No problem. I'll definitely go. Thowling nodded and took the initiative to agree on behalf of Yu Haoran. In response, Yu Haoran, who had returned to the space of his sea of consciousness to recuperate, also had a complicated and expectant look in his eyes. After all, he needed to know whether the spirits of triple annihilation, who could control the consciousness of the heavens, treated him as an enemy or a friend. Then, he could decide his next plan. After receiving Thowling's agreement, the black eye slowly disappeared into the void. The moment the black eye disappeared, Thowling, who had quickly retracted his attention from the void of the mountain range, looked directly at the people present with a fierce and murderous gaze. Then, he slowly raised his arm and pointed at the 7 half-tribulation supremes of the guardian families and softly chanted, "Cut of death." If the difference in strength between the martial god realm and the half-tribulation supremes was like the difference between a stone and a mountain, then the difference in strength between the half-tribulation supremes and the supremes was like the difference between a mountain and the entire Tianxian continent. Chapter 1924. In the Qinghu mountain range. It was because they didn't believe that Yu Haoran could directly cross the gap between the martial god realm and the half-tribulation supremacy realm, and possess the strength of a supreme supremacy. Therefore, the 7 experts of the guardian family didn't dodge the martial technique of the profound mysteries of the laws he used. Instead, they mobilized the profound mysteries of the laws they had comprehended and combined them with the half-tribulation supremacy's divine power and soul power to launch a fierce counterattack. However, when Thowling's death cut through the barrier of time and space and rapidly slashed their bodies, the 7 half-tribulation supremacy experts of the guardian family instantly turned as pale as paper. Their eyes were filled with endless fear. This was because they were extremely horrified to discover that the death cut that Yu Haoran used just now wasn't a martial technique of the profound mysteries of the laws at all. Instead, it was the power of space-time rules related to time and space. The power of rules was a brand new power after the advancement of the profound mysteries of the laws. At the same time, it was also the key for warriors to advance to the supreme supremacy realm. At this moment, they felt that the defense of the half-tribulation supremacy's physical body and sea of consciousness was easily broken by the martial technique condensed from the power of rules. At this moment, they felt that the life essence of the half-tribulation supremacy realm was rapidly being depleted by the martial technique condensed from the power of rules. The 7 half-tribulation supremacy expert from the guardian family already believed that Yu Haoran could directly possess the strength of a supreme supremacy realm with the cultivation of Emperor Wu's peak 9th grade martial god realm through a special secret technique. Faced with the crisis of their lives coming to an end, They had long forgotten about the greed of the secret technique and the thought of killing Yusiki. They were only thinking about how to preserve their eternal lives and how to continue enjoying the prosperity of the world, even if they had to pay any price for it. Therefore, the strongest expert of the Blue Dragon clan, who could barely withstand a portion of the damage from the power of rules, began to beg bitterly. Emperor's son-in-law, we shouldn't have wanted to kill your sister, and we shouldn't have coveted your secret technique that can increase our strength. We know that we were wrong. Please be merciful and spare our lives. Faced with the pleading of the strongest member of the Blue Dragon clan, Thalling's frosty expression did not change in the slightest. This also let him know that pleading with words alone would not move the other party. Therefore, the strongest person in the Blue Dragon clan began to continuously increase the bargaining chip of the deal, hoping to arouse Yu Haoran's greed and finally agree to the deal. Prince Consort, as long as you're willing to let us live, we're willing to take out all the rare treasures that have been passed down in our clans for countless years, all the supreme level mental cultivation techniques and martial skills, and all the jade slips that contain the insights and experiences of supreme level experts. Yu Haoran, who was in the middle of healing his soul injuries in his sea of consciousness, heard the conditions of the deal proposed by the strongest person in the Blue Dragon clan, especially the mention of the jade slips that contain the cultivation insights and experiences of supreme being powerhouses. His eyes immediately revealed an extremely tempted expression. In the past few years of training and adventures, he had obtained quite a number of rare treasures. In the memories of the Destiny Stone Steel, there are also a large number of supreme-level mental cultivation methods and martial skills. However, the only thing missing was the cultivation insights and experiences of supreme-level experts. If he could obtain a large amount of cultivation insights and experiences of supreme-level experts, then not only would he be able to quickly break through to the martial god and supreme being realms, he would also be able to help the people in the prince's mansion in a short period of time. Yu Haoran, any cultivation insights and experiences of supreme level experts are useless to you. As if he could foresee Yu Haoran's thoughts, Thalling, who had separated a small portion of his energy, directly reminded him. What? Yu Haoran asked in confusion. Because the breakthrough to the Supreme Being realm is different from the breakthroughs of other realms. Faced with Yu Haoran's questioning, Thalling explained in detail. Yu Haoran, while it is true that the breakthrough of mental cultivation, physical quality, divine power, and soul force is important, the advancement of the profound mysteries of the laws is the key to whether or not you can break through to the Supreme Being realm. Therefore, with the profound mysteries of the laws of life and death that you have comprehended, there is no supreme level expert's cultivation insights and experiences that are suitable for you. Although Thalling's explanation made Yu Haoran feel somewhat disappointed, it also proved the power of the profound mysteries of the laws of life and death from another perspective. Therefore, after quickly adjusting his disappointment, Yu Haoran no longer paid attention to the conditions proposed by the strongest expert of the Blue Dragon clan and continued to treat the injuries on his soul. While raising tempting conditions, the strongest expert of the Blue Dragon clan secretly paid attention to the changes in Yu Haoran's expression. When he saw that no matter what conditions he raised, even if it was the humiliating conditions of becoming a slave or servant, the other party remained indifferent, he immediately knew that the other party had no intention of letting him and the others go. Endless despair immediately welled up in his heart. Under the influence of despair, the tyrannical nature of the strongest expert of the Blue Dragon clan was gradually aroused. Scarlet killing intent quickly appeared in his eyes, causing him to completely give up on resisting the damage of the laws of life and death, intending to die together with Yu Haoran. However, he had underestimated the power of the laws of space and time, and also underestimated Thalling's use of them. The moment he had completely given up on resisting, an even more powerful law of life had suddenly erupted. Not only had it directly weakened his divine power and soul force by nearly 80%, it had also taken away nearly 2/3 of his life essence. This directly destroyed the thoughts of the strongest expert of the Blue Dragon clan who wanted to perish together with Thaling. He could only watch helplessly as his physical body continuously withered and his soul in his sea of consciousness weakened and dimmed. I can't accept this. He thought about how he had become famous in the distant ancient era. But because of the destruction of the ancient era and the plan prepared by the four ancestors, he had no choice but to enter a state of deep sleep. He thought about how the clan had paid a huge price to allow him to awaken again, but he had not given the clan anything in return. The strongest expert of the Blue Dragon clan, who was unwilling to fall, let out a cry that shook the entire Tianxian continent at the moment of his life's end. Even the strongest expert of the Blue Dragon clan was unable to resist the damage of the laws of life, let alone the other 6 half-tribulation supreme experts of the Guardian clans. They also watched their lives come to an end, and in the end, they turned into a pile of endless ashes and scattered in the mountains of Qinghu. The entire process of the 7 half-tribulation supreme experts of the Guardian clan's death was clearly witnessed by everyone present. They not only saw the terrifying power of the laws of space and time, but also saw Yu Haoran's determination to take revenge. Therefore, the moment the last half-tribulation supreme expert of the Guardian clans died, everyone immediately turned around and tore open the void in front of them, intending to use this method to escape from Qinghu. Chapter 1925. In the Qinghu mountain range. Bang, bang, bang. Above the Qinghu mountain range, the sound of hard objects colliding could be heard. The people who planned to escape by tearing the void were shocked to find that the void of the entire Qinghu mountain range had been completely sealed. They could not escape by tearing the void. The experienced people did not hesitate and immediately used the mystical laws to increase their speed. They rushed to the periphery of the Qinghu mountain range at lightning speed. However, at this moment, Yu Haoran's cold voice came from behind. It was the sound of the power of the rules when he killed the 7 experts from the Guardian families. Death Slice. Along with Thaling's cold voice, everyone was hit by the power of the rules. Apart from Carefree Valley's Nalanzing, ancient underworld clans Han Hao and the Hell Divine Hound, ancient god clans Divine Sun Shenjie, ancient devil clans Devil Sun Mo Hao, and ancient demon clans Black Divine Dragon, who did not encounter the attack of the martial technique created by the rules of fate. Everyone else was hit by the power of the rules without exception. After experiencing the deaths of the 7 half-tribulation supreme beings from the Guardian families, all the experts who were hit by the power of the rules knew that begging was useless. If he wanted to survive, he could only do so through means of self-preservation. Therefore, they all sat down cross-legged and took out a large number of top-notch elixirs and treasures from their self-opened independent spaces. They started to resist the power of the rules in their bodies. Bang, bang, bang. The 4 people and 2 beasts who were not attacked by the power of the rules rushed to the edge of the Qinghu mountain range excitedly. However, they crashed into an invisible defensive barrier. Along with the sound of violent collisions in the mountain range, the 4 people and 2 beasts who crashed into the defensive barrier were directly bounced back into the Qinghu mountain range by the strong rebounding force. If you don't want to be attacked by the death slice, then come back obediently. Just as the 4 people and 2 beasts were dizzy from the strong rebounding force, Yu Haoran's cold warning and threatening voice suddenly rang in their ears. They weren't a match for him, and they couldn't escape either. Therefore, after hearing Yu Haoran's warning and threat, the 4 people and 2 beasts obediently returned to the surface of the Azure Lake and observed the people who had been hit by the death slice martial skill. The 7-peak 9th grade martial gods did not even have the time to consume the best pills they had just taken out. They were unable to endure the damage to their flesh and divine souls from the death slash. They quickly turned into ashes and scattered into the mountain range and the lake. Although the 9 first Tribulation Supremes had time to take the elixirs, the increase and recovery of the elixirs couldn't compare to the speed of the death cut's damage to the physical body and divine soul. In the end, They only lasted for 3 to 5 seconds before they turned into endless ashes one after another. Only the middle-aged beauty from Carefree Valley was able to temporarily resist the power of laws with her cultivation as an early-stage second tribulation supreme, her powerful and mysterious formula douse secret arts, and the help of a large number of top-notch pills. However, from her beautiful black hair gradually turning white and her delicate snow-white skin gradually drying up, the 4 people and 2 beasts knew very well that she wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Prince Consort, when you broke through to the Pill Emperor and Array Emperor realms, the spirits of 3 Annihilation, who were in charge of monitoring the entire Tianxian continent, had sent assassins to assassinate you twice. In the end, they were intercepted halfway by me and my men. Seeing that the family elders could be taken away by the martial skill condensed by the power of laws at any time, Nailan Xing took a step forward and requested after a short consideration. Therefore, I hope that you can forgive old ancestor Yishuang's sins and give her a way to atone for her sins. After hearing Nailan Xing's request, a trace of hesitation flashed in Thaling's eyes. This was because he could see the truth of what Nailan Xing had just said, and he also knew that the arrogant spirits of 3 Annihilation could do such a thing. However, the reason why they attacked Nailan Yishuang just now was entirely because they obeyed Yu Haoran's instructions. Therefore, whether to forgive Nailan Yishuang in the end, Thaling still intended to ask for his opinion. Thaling, let her live. Just when Thaling was about to ask for his opinion, Yu Haoran's voice suddenly came from the sea of consciousness. Okay. Since Yu Haoran was willing to let Nailan Yishuang go, Thaling of course nodded in agreement without any objection. Then he stretched out his hand and pointed at Nailan Yishuang and whispered softly, "Return." Accompanied by Thaling's voice, a light purple energy flew out from Nailan Yishuang's body and then returned to Thaling's finger. Thank you. The luck and joy of being reborn made Nailan Yishuang unable to replenish the life force she had lost, nor did she have time to recover her old appearance. She hurriedly got up and cupped her hands to thank Yu Haoran. In response, Thaling only nodded indifferently. Then, he looked at Yusiki, who was trying to break through to the peak of the 9th grade martial god realm, and asked Yu Haoran why he had not killed the 4 people and 2 beasts for the time being. In response to Thaling's questioning, Yu Haoran temporarily stopped healing his divine soul and sighed with a complicated expression. Thaling, I want to take the Emperor's son-in-law's residence and 100,000 elite soldiers back to the 100 Qi Gate in the southern region. Earlier, with the help of the secret method inherited from the Destiny Stone Steel, he temporarily possessed the strength of a peak second tribulation supreme. When he used the power of destiny in the Stone Steel, he discovered that the destiny of the entire Tianxian continent and the destiny aura of all living things were not only flowing slowly, but the source of most of the destiny and destiny aura seemed to be the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located in the southern region. When he thought of where the Destiny Stone Steel and the Destiny Calamity Spiritual Rat had been born and how he had soared after his reincarnation, he realized that they were all in the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located. Yu Haoran had a very strong feeling that the key to whether he could complete the accumulation of the complete 10th grade martial god realm and successfully break through to the supremacy realm lay in the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate and the 100 Qi Gate was located. Even the hope of successfully seizing the opportunity of the immeasurable calamity and using that opportunity to break through to the immortal realm seemed to lie in the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located. Therefore, when Thaling was about to slaughter everyone present, he took the initiative to ask Thaling to let go of Carefree Valley's Nailan Xing, the primordial demon clan's Black Divine Dragon, the primordial god clan Shenjie, and the primordial demon clan's Emojie. This was because he needed to use the threat of death to force these people to sign an agreement that they would not invade the 100 Qi Gate and a mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located. This would ensure the safety of the 100 Qi Gate and the prince's mansion. Chapter 1926. In the Qinghu Mountains. After hearing Yu Haoran's specific reason for not killing Nailan Xing and the Black Divine Dragon for the time being, Thowling immediately mobilized the divine sense of a peak third-grade supreme martial artist. With the help of the space-time energy and the chaotic mark, he quickly arrived at the mountain where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Then his powerful divine sense carefully checked the entire mountain from inside to outside, from top to bottom, and from front to back 3 times. But the final result of the check was nothing. However, thinking of Yu Haoran's identity as the son of destiny and the Destiny Stone tablet that contained the power of the destiny rules, Thowling chose to believe in his feelings even though he didn't see any abnormalities in the mountain where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Therefore, Thowling immediately returned the control of the physical body and asked him to negotiate with Nalanzing and the Black Divine Dragon. Break for me. Just as Yu Haoran took over the control of the physical body, Yusiki's soft, scolding voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Accompanied by the soft, scolding voice, Yusiki's terrifying aura suddenly rose and directly shook Thowling's frozen mountain range, causing the frozen space to loosen temporarily. This also caused the Black Divine Dragon and Hanhao to reveal a hint of interest in their eyes. However, when they saw Yu Haoran's half-smile, the fear that emerged in their hearts immediately extinguished the idea of taking the opportunity to escape. Then, they obediently stayed where they were. When the rising aura reached its peak, Yusiki, who slowly opened her eyes, withdrew the powerful aura that she emitted when she broke through the realm, and looked at Yu Haoran, whose face was as pale as paper and whose aura had barely recovered to a 9th-grade martial arts grandmaster. Her eyes were filled with gratitude and self-blame. When she used the reward of the immortal tribulation thunder to break through to the martial god realm, she also completely unlocked the inheritance of the 2 supreme martial artists from the ancient and Middle Ages. When she received the cultivation enlightenment of the martial god realm and the supreme martial artist realm, she also knew the hatred that the 2nd supreme martial artist had once formed, and was also very clear about the determination of those enemies to kill her. Moreover, she was not completely unaware of what had happened in the outside world when she had just broken through. She was very clear about everything that Yu Haoran had done for her. Sister, don't think too much and don't say too much. Hurry up and use these pills to consolidate and familiarize yourself with your new realm. Seeing the gratitude and self-blame in Yusiki's eyes, Yu Haoran was obviously going to get rid of the emotionless realm. While feeling deeply gratified, he hurriedly took out more than a dozen top elixirs for consolidating the realm. While wrapping the elixirs with his divine thoughts, he sent them to her and reminded her with a smile. Yusiki stretched out her hand to take the pills from Yu Haoran. A layer of mist appeared in her eyes as she nodded. Her gaze then shifted towards the primordial demon race's Black Divine Dragon, the primordial god race's Godchild Shinjie, the primordial devil race's Devilchild Mohao, the primordial nether race's Netherchild Hanhao, as well as Nalanzing and Nalan Ishuang from Carefree Valley. Everyone who was stared at by Yusiki's indifferent gaze couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Especially the Black Divine Dragon who once had direct contact with the 1st-generation Supreme Sovereign. Endless fear emerged in his heart. After sweeping her gaze across everyone present, Yusiki's gaze successively shifted to the Southern Territory, Eastern Territory, Western Territory, and Central Territory. After a trace of resolute and fierce killing intent flashed in her eyes, she slowly closed her eyes and sat down cross-legged. After spitting out the Sarara prayer beads under the tip of her tongue, she began to use the elixirs given by Yu Haoran to consolidate and familiarize herself with her new realm. After withdrawing his gaze from Yusiki, Yu Haoran looked at everyone standing side by side. The smile on his face was immediately replaced by gloominess, and his voice was as cold as frost. Do you want to die or live? Of course I want to live. As the only one who had a friendship with Yu Haoran, Hanhao's immature face immediately showed a flattering smile, and he answered on behalf of everyone. If you want to live, you have to agree to 2 of my requests. Yu Haoran's gloomy face didn't change in the slightest because of Hanhao's flattering smile. He still said in a cold tone, Prince Consort, please say it. Hanhao hurriedly said, Immediately remove the contract with the Cerberus and leave it behind. Then you can leave here safely. Yu Haoran pointed at Black Puppy in a Hanhao's arms and said a request specifically targeted at him. No. Without the slightest hesitation, a Hanhao directly shook his head and refused. Prince Consort, the Cerberus is the companion beast of the direct descendant of the Netherworld clan's royal family. It's my partner and brother who grew up with me since I was young, and it's also my strongest aid in breaking through to the supreme realm in the future. I will never abandon my partner and brother. In that case, you and the Cerberus can return to the embrace of the Grim Reaper. Just as a Hanhao flatly refused a request to leave the Cerberus behind, Yu Haoran slowly raised his arm and gave a Hanhao the final judgment of fate. Of course, in the absence of Thaling controlling the body, the judgment of fate just now was just a means of intimidation. But Yu Haoran believed that a Hanhao, who was greedy for life and afraid of death, would definitely agree to his request in the end. And things developed just as he had guessed. Just as he pointed his outstretched finger at a Hanhao, whose eyes were filled with endless fear, hurriedly shouted, "Prince Consort, stop, I agree." When it heard a Hanhao agree to remove the contract with the beast pet, the Cerberus in his arms revealed a trace of desolation in its eyes. A wise man submits to circumstances. It seems that your highness is indeed a sensible person. Hearing a Hanhao agree to hand over the Cerberus, Yu Haoran slowly lowered his arm and praised him with a satisfied smile. Ignoring Yu Haoran's praise, a Hanhao lowered his head and looked at Black Puppy in his arms, his eyes full of reluctance. 3 seconds later, after his reluctance was replaced by determination, a Hanhao bit the tip of his tongue, spat out a mouthful of essence blood, and then began to perform the spell to remove the beast pet contract. Break! As a Hanhao roared, a blood-red mark floated out from the forehead of the Cerberus and broke directly from the middle. The moment the blood-red mark broke, Black Puppy's body rapidly grew and soon became a giant ferocious dog with a height of more than 100 meters and a body length of nearly 300 meters. Woo! Looking at a Hanhao with a trace of reluctance in its eyes, the Cerberus looked up at the sky and let out a continuous, sorrowful cry. Break! Chapter 1927. In the Qinghu mountain range. As half of the blood-red mark completely shattered, the sorrowful cry was immediately replaced by a painful scream. At the same time, the reluctance in the Hell God Hound's eyes was instantly replaced by resentment. Ignoring the resentful eyes of the Hell God Hound, a Hanhao turned around and left the Qinghu mountain range with a few drops of tears in his eyes. Then he quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. 10 years. You only need to follow me for 10 years. Then I will completely give you back your freedom. Just after a Hanhao turned around and left the Qinghu mountain range, the Hell God Hound suddenly turned around and looked at Yu Haoran with eyes full of murderous intent. It was ready to fight at any time. In this regard, Yu Haoran stretched out a finger without fear. Then he smiled and set his conditions. At that time, no matter if you want to return to a Hanhao's side or plan to cultivate alone to become the king of divine beasts, I, Yu Haoran, promise not to interfere and disturb you, and I am willing to provide help as much as I can. After hearing Yu Haoran's guarantee and feeling relaxed after being free from the beast pet contract, the tyrannical aura in the Hell God Hound's eyes gradually subsided. Finally, it shrank and flew to his side. However, the Hell God Hound, who turned back into Black Puppy, flatly refused Yu Haoran's move to pick it up and deliberately kept a distance of 1 meter. In this regard, Yu Haoran neither cared nor was angry. He just took out 9 elixirs that could greatly improve the evil spirit and threw them directly in front of the Hell God Hound. He pretended to be indifferent and said, "You're welcome. For an alchemy master like me who is in the alchemy god realm, I can refine as many as I want." Later, he looked up at Nalen Zing, Black Divine Dragon, and others. After the smile on his face was replaced by gloominess again, he said the second request in a cold tone. "Next, You swear with your own mind and your own realm that your subordinates and clansmen will never step into the area within 1,000 kilometers of the Southern 100 Gate. Otherwise, your soul will fall into hell forever. Your realm will never be able to advance, and your entire sect and race will be completely extinct. Compared to the conditions of asking a Hanhao for the Cerberus, Yu Haoran's request just now was not excessive at all. Moreover, they had no intention of occupying the remote 100 Gate. Therefore, whether it was Shun Jie and Mo Hao who were filled with intense hatred for Yu Haoran, or Nailan Xing and the Black Divine Dragon, they all quickly nodded in agreement. At the same time, they all swore to never invade the 100 Gate. Nailan Xing and Black Divine Dragon will stay here for the time being. The rest of you can leave Qing Hu mountain range. Yu Haoran nodded in satisfaction after everyone swore on their state of mind and cultivation. Then he instructed softly, "Be careful." After reminding Nailan Xing softly, Nailan Yi's eyes were filled with worry as he turned around and left Qing Hu mountain range. After everyone left, Yu Haoran looked at Nailan Xing and asked, "Senior Xing, I wonder if Carefree Valley has joined the Heaven Alliance established by Destiny's Child, Ji Xing?" "No." After hearing Yu Haoran's question, Nailan Xing nervously shook her head and replied, even though she knew that her life was not in danger with the help of the innate divination technique, she was still a little nervous. "Our ancestors have left a message that forbids Carefree Valley from participating in any worldly disputes. Furthermore, we should always be on guard against the spirits of destruction that were born during the ancient times, Middle Ages, and recent ages. We should prevent them from causing disasters that would endanger the human race. Therefore, we have already rejected Ji Xing's invitation and expressed Carefree Valley's attitude." After hearing Nailan Xing's reply, Yu Haoran said gently, "I hope that Senior Xing will always follow Senior Xian Jing's message and not make any wrong decisions that would endanger Carefree Valley. Xing will not forget Ancestor's message." Nailan Xing quickly promised. "If that's the case, then Senior Xing can leave the Qing Hu mountain range now." Yu Haoran nodded. After Nailan Xing left Qing Hu mountain range, Yu Haoran directly instructed the Black Divine Dragon, "Take out 100 stalks of transformation grass, and you can leave Qing Hu mountain range." This, after hearing Yu Haoran's order, the Black Divine Dragon revealed a troubled expression. As a demon clan that had been sealed since the ancient times, a large amount of transformation grass was planted in the secret realm in the Hengduan Mountains so that the demons born in the secret realm could turn into humans. However, when they broke through the seal of the secret realm and returned to the Tianxian continent, the Green Hill Foxes used some unknown method to convince most of the elders in the clan to give all of the transformation grass to the Green Hill Foxes. Therefore, the Black Divine Dragon did not have that many transformation grass with him. Seeing that the Black Divine Dragon was unwilling to take out 100 stalks of transformation grass, Yu Haoran's calm expression instantly turned gloomy. He slowly raised his arm to threaten the Black Divine Dragon. "Prince Consort, please calm down. It's not that I'm reluctant to give up 100 stalks of ordinary transformation grass. It's just that I can't take out so many transformation grass now." When the Black Divine Dragon saw Yu Haoran slowly raising his arm, it thought of the white spiritual tiger that had died under the power of the rules. The Black Divine Dragon hurriedly explained, "Because when we break the seal of the secret realm and return to the secret realm..." After hearing the Black Divine Dragon's explanation, Yu Haoran knew that things were not going well as a look of regret appeared in his eyes. In truth, when he had subdued the Black Bear, he already had the idea and plan to slaughter the Green Hill Fox clan. However, he was too wary of the Green Hill Fox clan's hidden power that he did not put it into action. Now that he heard that all the transformation grass cultivated by the ancient demon clan had fallen into the Green Hill Fox clan's hands, he knew that all the demon beasts above the Emperor realm in the Tianxian continent would be subdued by the Green Hill Fox clan. At the same time, with a large number of Emperor realm, Godly realm, and half-supreme realm demon beasts that they had subdued, the Green Hill Fox clan had become the top clan in the Tianxian continent. Their top elites, and overall strength far surpassed the four great guardian clans. However, it was too late for regrets now. Therefore, Yuhaoran could only do his best to collect enough transformation grass for his own pet beasts, the palace, the long-armed apes, and the pet beasts subdued by his family and friends. Black Divine Dragon, how many transformation grass can you provide now? If the Black Divine Dragon did not have enough transformation grass to satisfy the needs of his family and friends, he decided to take the risk and sneak into the Hungduan mountain range to kill the ancient demon clan to collect the transformation grass that he lacked. After all, using the transformation grass to take on a human form was not only beneficial for traveling and adventuring outside, it would also help improve one's cultivation and strength. Fortunately, as an elder of the ancient demon clan who held real power, the Black Divine Dragon still had 23 transformation grass in his possession. It was more than enough for his current needs. Chapter 1928. Qinghu Mountain Range. After the Black Dragon God left Qinghu Mountain Range, Yuhaoran slowly landed beside Qinghu. He then instructed Thaling to send Qin Lingfei and the others out of Victor's space. Prince Consort, what happened to you? The moment they left Victor's space, Qin Lingfei and the Sword Without Trace immediately looked at Yuhaoran. Seeing his pale face and the aura of a rank 9 martial grandmaster, the two of them immediately rushed to his side and asked worriedly. Then Yun Xiang, Fang Man, and Xiang Muling rushed to him as well. As for Wu Jingjun, Lu Yuan, Palace, and Long-Armed Ape, they immediately emitted a strong, murderous aura, ready to take revenge at any time. I'm fine. After explaining to Qin Lingfei and the Sword Without Trace, and gesturing to Wu Jingjun and the others not to act rashly, Yuhaoran immediately took out 2 stalks of transformation grass. He then wrapped them in his divine telekinesis and sent them to Palace and Long-Armed Ape. Brother Qi, Senior, I'm sure you know what kind of spiritual herb this is, so please don't stand on ceremony with me. Looking at each other, Palace and Long-Armed Ape's eyes flashed with excitement. After all, using the transformation grass to transform into a human's form would be more beneficial to one's state of mind and increase one's level. However, considering that Yuhaoran's pet beast, Black Bear, and his wife, Qin Lingfei's blue WRM, both needed the transformation grass to transform into a human, Palace and Long-Armed Ape forcefully suppressed their desires and quickly shook their heads in refusal. Yuhaoran, who had already expected this, took out the other 21 stalks of transformation grass and explained with a smile. Just now, after the ancient demon clan's second tribulation supreme Black Divine Dragon was defeated by me using a secret technique, I used 23 stalks of transformation grass as a condition for his survival. Therefore, Brother Qi and Senior can accept the 2 stalks of transformation grass without any qualms. Looking at the pile of transformation grass that suddenly appeared in Yuhaoran's hand, the Red Loath and the Long-Armed Ape were extremely shocked. However, after hearing Yuhaoran's explanation, they immediately accepted the transformation grass and thanked him. After that, Yuhaoran took out 8 more stalks of transformation grass and gave them to Qin Lingfei, Wu Jingjun, and the others so that they could use the transformation grass to transform their contracted pet beasts, improving their pet beast cultivation and strength. Yuhaoran put away the remaining 13 transformation herbs. Just as he was about to fly back to the prince's mansion, Lu Yuan suddenly stood up and reminded him, Junior Brother Yu, I'm also planning to break through to the martial god realm. After hearing Lu Yuan's reminder, Yuhaoran was stunned for a moment. He then looked up at the cloudless sky with hesitation in his eyes. Although Lu Yuan's accumulation was not as profound as Yusiki's, as a top genius among sword cultivators and the 4th disciple of swordsmanship, and Jian's physique, when he tried to break through to the martial god realm, the power of the god's tribulation lightning punishment would not be inferior to Wu Jingjun's. By then, it would definitely attract the attention and vigilance of some top swordsmanship experts. As the saying went, there is no first place in literature and no second place in martial arts. Faced with a top genius in swordsmanship like Lu Yuan, facing the God's tribulation lightning punishment that could shake the entire Tianqian continent, some narrow-minded top swordsmanship experts, and some insidious people with ulterior motives would inevitably do some extreme things under the influence of jealousy and fear. In his current state of unrecovered from his serious injuries, he would not be able to provide much protection unless he continued to trouble Thaling to take control of his physical body and attack. However, if Thaling continued to attack, it would definitely affect the speed of his recovery from his injuries and potential, which would affect the relocation of the prince's mansion and the ability to deal with the disaster that could befall them at any time. This was an important reason for his hesitation. However, since he was prepared to break through to the martial god realm, it meant that Lu Yuan's essence, energy, and spirit had already been adjusted to their peak. If he rejected his request to break through to the martial god realm now, it would probably affect his state of mind and mentality. Not only would this reduce the support he received from the Sword Dao Fate, but it would also affect his future cultivation. If it was serious, it would even affect his firm confidence in swordsmanship. As a result, after much consideration, Yu Haoran decided to agree to Lu Yuan's request in the end. He wanted Lu Yuan to break through to the martial god realm in his peak condition so that he could receive even more support from Swordway luck and strengthen his belief in the way of the sword. Thinking of this, Yu Haoran returned to the lakeside of Green Lake. After instructing Qing Feng and Yusiki, who had just stabilized her realm, to protect Lu Yuan with all their might, Yu Haoran sat down with his legs crossed. Then, he used his mind to instruct the life-stealing spirit rat in his heart space and Thaling in his mind space to be vigilant of the situation in Green Lake mountain range at all times to prevent anyone from interfering with Lu Yuan's breakthrough and the God's tribulation lightning punishment reward he would receive after breaking through. After that, he took out a large number of top-notch elixirs from his storage ring and a small portion of chaotic spiritual energy that was guided by Thaling to heal the injuries on his physical body and soul, as well as replenish his overdrawn lifespan and potential. When Lu Yuan soared into the air above the mountain range and released the realm and aura that he had been suppressing, the dark clouds that had just dispersed began to gather again. Moreover, although the speed and range of the dark clouds that Lu Yuan gathered when he was breaking through to the martial god realm were not as fast as Yusiki's, they were far more than Wu Jingjuan's. This was enough to prove his talent and potential, as well as how outstanding his fate and accumulation were. Looking up at the dark clouds that were gathering rapidly, Lu Yuan sat down with his legs crossed in the air. Then, he took out the ginseng fruit that Yu Haoran had given him and used the vast amount of pure spiritual energy contained in the ginseng fruit to make the final breakthrough to the martial god realm. Boom! Accompanied by a low and oppressive roar, the dark clouds that were gathering at a speed more than 10 times faster than before plunged the entire Green Lake mountain range into complete darkness. At the same time, it attracted the attention of many forces and top-notch experts in the Tianqian continent. According to the information transmitted from the dark clouds, when they found out that the person undergoing the tribulation was a genius in the sword principle, the 13 supreme sword principle experts from the World Purification Organization, the 5 inherited families, the Lingxiao Pavilion, and the Rogue Cultivators Alliance were instantly filled with murderous intent. They planned to kill the genius in the sword principle who could threaten them in the future and compete with them for the sword principle fate. However, when they found out that the location of the tribulation was in Green Lake mountain range and that the genius in the sword principle who was undergoing the tribulation was Lu Yuan, not only did they immediately turn around and return to their respective places of cultivation, but they also prepared generous gifts and planned to visit Lu Yuan to congratulate him after he succeeded in his tribulation. Chapter 1929. Under the premise that the Supremes could not return to the Tianqian continent in a short period of time, other than the spirits of 3 annihilation who controlled the consciousness of the heavens, and Yu Haoran who had the strength to suppress the Supremes, the remaining forces and experts were no match for them. Therefore, for the sake of their own lives, and for the sake of the forces behind them. They had no choice but to apologize in advance so that they could ask for Yu Haoran's forgiveness. Yu Haoran would not hold them responsible for their rash appearance in the Qinghu mountain range. After listening to Thaling's description of the actions of the dozen half-tribulation supremes, Yu Haoran thought for a moment and understood the reason why they had immediately left the Qinghu mountain range. As he secretly heaved a sigh of relief, he was no longer worried that someone would disrupt Lu Yuan's breakthrough to the martial god realm. At the same time, with the help of the Xianyuan sword and the sword spirit, he believed that Lu Yuan would definitely be able to pass through the god's tribulation thunder safely and eventually become an immortal martial god. Therefore, after withdrawing some of his attention, Yu Haoran began to heal his injuries with the help of elixirs and chaotic spiritual qi to make up for his overdrawn lifespan and potential. Although the god's tribulation thunder that Lu Yuan had attracted was far more powerful than Wu Zhengjuan's, with the help of the Xianyuan sword's weapon spirit and sword principle luck, and the support of Lu Yuan's firm belief in sword principle, he successfully passed through the 9 lightning tribulations. At the same time, with the reward of the god's tribulation thunder, not only did Lu Yuan's cultivation break through to the peak 6th grade martial god realm, but he also condensed his own sword realm and officially became a sword god in the sword principle realm. With the sword god sword principle realm and the cultivation of a peak 6th grade martial god, he could definitely easily kill an opponent at the peak 7th grade martial god realm and fight against a peak 8th grade martial god realm expert. Senior Brother Lu, how do you feel? With Thaling's reminder, Yu Haoran, whose cultivation had recovered to the peak 9th grade martial venerable realm, temporarily woke up from the state of healing. He raised his head to look at Lu Yuan, who had consolidated his breakthrough and was standing in front of him, and asked with a smile, "Junior Brother Yu, thank you." Looking at Yu Haoran, who had awakened from his healing state, Lu Yuan placed his right hand on his chest and solemnly thanked him with a grateful expression in his eyes. Yu Haoran's help accounted for at least 70% of the credit for being able to advance from the martial emperor realm to the immortal martial god realm in less than 4 years. If it wasn't for Yu Haoran frequently sending him a large number of top-quality pills, then it would be impossible for him to maintain the speed of breaking through a large realm every year. If it weren't for the help of Yu Haoran and Thaling, he wouldn't have been favored by the Xianyuan sword and the sword spirit, and thus received guidance from famous teachers on the path of cultivation. He wouldn't have been able to accumulate the potential to surpass Wu Zhengjuan's bloodthirsty physique. If it weren't for Yu Haoran informing him of the 3 swords of heaven, earth, and human that represented the sword principle luck in advance, and using a scheme to kill the heavenly sword, he wouldn't have been able to receive the blessing of the sword principle luck, thus improving his talent in sword principle and finally condensing the sword realm with absolute control. If it weren't for Yu Haoran selflessly giving him the ginseng fruit, one of the 3 spiritual roots, he wouldn't have been able to continue to improve his potential before breaking through to the martial god realm. Thus, with the help of the increased power of the divine tribulation thunder punishment and the reward of the thunder punishment, he would not have been able to advance to the peak of the 6th level of the martial god realm in one fell swoop. Therefore, he was able to achieve what he had today completely thanks to Yu Haoran's help. How could he not be grateful? Senior Brother Lu, do you still need to be so polite with me? After finishing his cultivation and standing up, Yu Haoran asked with a smile. Junior Brother Yu, I understand. Understanding the meaning of Yu Haoran's question, Lu Yuan put away the gratitude in his eyes and nodded heavily. Since Senior Brother Lu has successfully advanced to the peak of the 6th grade martial god, let's hurry up and return. Just as Yu Haoran was about to suggest that they return to the prince's mansion immediately, Pallas suddenly walked up to him and directly interrupted his suggestion and stated his own request. Brother Yu, I also plan to break through to the divine beast realm. After hearing Pallas's request, Yu Haoran was only slightly surprised, but he nodded in agreement without any hesitation. He also instructed Yu Siki, Lu Yuan, and Qing Feng to protect Pallas. After all, only the ancient demon tribe, the ancient gods and demons, and the ancient underworld tribe were unwilling to see Pallas break through to the divine beast realm. However, these four races had long been frightened by the tower spirit, who had regained the supremacy level. What they needed to do now was to guard against the tower spirit's revenge, not to disrupt the Scarlet Loth's breakthrough. Therefore, Yuhauran was not worried that Pallas would be attacked and sabotaged by experts during his breakthrough. After receiving Yuhauran's approval, Pallas also flew into the air above the mountain range and released the realm and aura that he had been suppressing. Although Pallas was extremely ambitious and wanted to break free from the shackles of his ancestral bloodline, his talent, potential, fate, and accumulation were not as good as Yusiki and Lu Yuan's, and they were also slightly inferior to Wu Zhengjuan's, who had the blood-devouring physique. Therefore, the speed and range of the gathering, the thickness and pressure of the black clouds that he gathered when using the ginseng fruit to break through to the divine beast realm were far inferior to Yusiki and Wu Zhengjuan's in terms of the gathering speed, the range, the thickness, the pressure, and the power of the divine tribulation thunder. Although the Scarlet Loth had successfully passed the divine tribulation lightning punishment with the help of the immortal slaughtering sword of the four immortal slaying swords, it had only reached the early third level of the divine realm with the reward of the divine tribulation lightning punishment. Although Pallas knew that his talent, potential, fate, and accumulation were not as good as Yusiki and Lu Yuan's, the huge gap between them after breaking through to the martial god realm made him feel extremely depressed. At the same time, a desire to catch up and surpass them emerged in his heart. When Pallas simply consolidated his breakthrough and returned to Yuhauran's side, Yuhauran only temporarily stopped healing his injuries and gave Pallas a few words of encouragement. Then he looked directly at the long-armed ape and asked with a smile, "Senior, are you planning to directly break through to the divine beast realm?" "That's right." The long-armed ape nodded. "Yuhauran, give all the medicinal pills in your storage ring to the long-armed ape." Just when Yuhauran was about to nod and agree to the long-armed ape's request to break through to the divine beast realm, Thalink's voice came from his sea of consciousness. For the time being, Yuhauran did not ask the reason why Thalink gave all the medicinal pills. He used his mind to take out 5 types of first-stage medicinal pills that were used to quickly recover strength from the storage ring. Then, he wrapped them with Yuan Qi and sent them to the long-armed ape. Then he smiled and instructed. Chapter 1930. In the Qinghu mountain range, the long-armed ape didn't know how to repay Yuhauran for saving his life during the second crisis. The long-armed ape didn't know how to repay him. Now, when he was about to break through to the divine beast realm, Yuhauran gave him so many elixirs. This made him even more touched, and he didn't want to continue to owe Yuhauran a favor that he couldn't repay. But when the long-armed ape was about to refuse, Yuhauran directly closed his eyes and pretended to continue healing. He didn't give the long-armed ape a chance to refuse the elixirs. Alas, seeing Yuhauran's gesture of refusal, the long-armed ape couldn't help but sigh softly. He reached out and took the elixirs floating in front of him. Then, he directly flew into the air above the mountain range and began to prepare for the breakthrough to the divine beast realm. At the same time, Yuhauran also quickly asked Thaling in the Sea of Consciousness why he asked him to give all the elixirs to recover his strength. The long-armed ape that realizes the ancestral bloodline through the state of epiphany is already infinitely close to the constitution of the long-armed ape in essence, and the long-armed ape is still an innate spiritual creature bred by heaven and earth. In the face of Yuhauran's questioning, Thaling looked at the long-armed ape floating in the air through the sea of consciousness space and explained with a dignified expression. When an innate spiritual creature advances to the divine beast realm, the grade and power of the divine tribulation thunder punishment is not inferior to Yusiki's immortal tribulation thunder punishment. So those elixirs used to quickly recover strength are the life-saving means used by the long-armed ape to resist the divine tribulation thunder punishment. After hearing Thaling's explanation, Yuhauran suddenly thought of the scene he saw through the memory crystal when he reunited with the empty spirit mouse. He couldn't help but ask with a change of expression. Fouling, according to your explanation just now, when the long-armed ape is advancing to the divine beast realm, will it attract the heavens consciousness and the heavenly way rules? The heavenly Tao laws that are currently in a state of perfection will definitely not appear. However, the spirits of three annihilations that control the will of the heavens might appear. At this point, Fouling recalled the magnificent feats of the Tongbi divine ape in ancient times, and then reminded with a solemn expression. However, the various top powers of the ancient era will definitely prepare methods to restrain me, and then come to kill the long-armed ape that will definitely advance to the long-armed ape god. Because compared to the grand exalts who only knew how to increase their cultivation and strength, the long-armed divine apes, who were more violent, murderous, and stronger, brought even greater harm to the various peak forces of the ancient era. Thus, they were even more fearful of the long-armed divine ape's reappearance. Fouling, what should I do next? If the other party really had the means to restrain Fouling, then Yu Siki, Qing Feng, Lu Yuan, Wu Jingjun, and Palace would definitely not be able to fend off the Second Tribulation Supreme experts from the ancient top forces. Yu Haoran, don't worry. Faced with Yu Haoran's worries, Fouling smiled and comforted him. Why? Yu Haoran asked in confusion. Because those peak forces of the ancient era will definitely make preparations to restrain me based on the strength that I displayed when I controlled your body. However, not only did I only display less than 50% of my strength, I also did not use the Victor that had recovered 70% of its injuries, nor did I use the Rui Bell that had fused with the 6 marks of chaos. Therefore, as long as it's not a peak exalted expert, no force or person will be able to disrupt the long-armed ape's breakthrough, and no one will be able to easily harm you. Fouling replied arrogantly. After hearing Fouling's arrogant reply, although Yu Haoran was temporarily relieved, he did not continue to heal his injuries. Instead, he stood up and walked to Qin Lingfei's side. He raised his head to observe the long-armed ape's breakthrough, while instructing the Calamity Spirit Mouse to pay attention to the movements around the Qing mountain range. When the long-armed ape calmed down its feelings of gratitude and adjusted its energy to its peak state, it immediately released the suppression of its realm and aura. However, as the black clouds that were more than 100,000 kilometers long gathered like a gust of wind, not only were Yu Haoran and the others shocked, but even the long-armed ape himself was shocked. This was because after going through the tribulations of Yu Siki, Lu Yuan, and Palace, he had a deep understanding of the power of the God's Tribulation lightning punishment. He also knew that the power of the God's Tribulation lightning punishment was directly related to the person's talent, potential, luck, and accumulation. In terms of talent and potential, he was far inferior to Yu Siki, who had a special physique and cultivated the Taishan Heart Sutra. He was also inferior to Lu Yuan, who had the dark sword physique and monstrous talent in the way of the sword. In terms of luck and accumulation, he was also inferior to Palace, who had obtained the immortal culling sword of the 4 immortal slaying swords and experienced a great increase in his potential several times. However, why was it that when he was undergoing the tribulation, the area where the black clouds gathered, the speed and the thickness of the clouds far exceeded that of Yu Siki, Lu Yuan, and Palace? Could it be related to the epiphany of the bloodline that he had obtained some time ago? Thinking of this, the long-armed ape finally understood why Yu Haoran gave him a large amount of level 1 divine pills before he chose to break through to the divine beast realm. He probably already knew that his physique was extraordinary and knew the power of the God's Tribulation lightning punishment. The reason why he did not inform him in advance was probably because he did not want to add too much pressure on him and affect his determination to break through to the divine beast realm. At this very moment, long-armed ape, who had figured all this out, felt even more gratitude and respect for Haoran, as well as a mysterious sense of trust and respect. In the nameless valley at the border of the southern and eastern regions, after experiencing the shock of Supreme Violet Spirit's birth, the scorching sun, silver moon, and Fanqing, who had left the consciousness of the heavens, sat cross-legged on a huge chessboard without speaking for a long time. Because at this moment, they were recalling the mystery of the time and space victor and the power of supreme violet spirit. Even the commotion caused by Lu Yuan and Palace's tribulation did not wake them up from their memories. However, when a long-armed ape began to break through to the divine beast realm and caused an earth-shattering commotion, the scorching sun, silver moon, and Fanqing immediately woke up from their memories and immediately used their divine senses to check the source of the commotion. When they saw that the source of the commotion was actually the long-armed ape who followed Yu Haoran, their eyes revealed a difficult expression. Although scorching sun, silver moon, and Vastar had never seen a real long-armed godly ape, when they were born from the apocalyptic power, they had received the memories of countless creatures. They clearly knew how terrifying the long-armed godly ape was. Chapter 1931. In the nameless valley at the border of the southern and eastern regions, according to the three spirits of annihilation's habit of killing all potential threats in advance, they should have directly destroyed the long-armed ape's breakthrough and let it die in the thunder punishment of the god's tribulation. However, thinking of Yu Haoran's identity as the son of destiny, the destiny stone tablet that he had to control destiny, and the power of supreme violet spirit and the time and space victor in his sea of consciousness, even Zhuori, who was at the peak of 6th grade supreme, was considering whether it was worth taking the risk. Zhuori, what should we do? Whether to take the risk and destroy the long-armed ape's breakthrough, or to choose to stand aside and watch in the end, they all needed Zhuori, who was the strongest, to make the decision. Therefore, after a brief exchange of glances with Fanqing, Silvermoon looked directly into Zhuori's eyes and asked. Facing Silvermoon's question, Zhuori, who was in a dilemma, couldn't help but frown. To stand aside and watch the long-armed ape become a strong enemy in the future to fight for the immortal realm was definitely not an outcome he wanted to see. However, if he destroyed the long-armed ape's breakthrough, he would definitely have a direct confrontation with Yu Haoran and Supreme Violet Spirit. He didn't have full confidence in dealing with Supreme Violet Spirit, who was once famous in ancient times and could easily kill Peak Supremes. He was also worried that he would completely make Yu Haoran hostile and unable to obtain the help of destiny in the end. After much consideration, Zhuori finally decided to sit back and watch the tigers fight. That was because he believed that the top powers of the ancient times, as well as the inherited family clans of the ancient times, would definitely not sit idly by and watch the long-armed ape break through. They would definitely prepare methods to counter Sovereign Purple Spirit. Therefore, he needed to see the final result of the battle between the two sides to decide whether or not to take action. Silver Moon and Fanqing also thought that Zhuori's decision to sit back and watch the tigers fight was the best solution so far. At the same time, the three of them joined forces to control the heavens' consciousness to descend and hide in the void above Qinghu mountain range. In the Hengduan mountain range, the deep pit that was originally used to set up the seal formation had been transformed into a jade palace by the ancient demon clan. It was surrounded by clouds and mist, and it was like a paradise on earth. The black divine dragon, who had used the oath and the 23 stalks of transformation grass to save his life, had just returned to the palace in the Hengduan Mountains when he was summoned to the meeting hall by more than a dozen elders with real power. They then asked him to explain in detail what had happened in the Qinghu mountain range. After finding out that the youngster by the name of Yu Haoran was actually able to use a special secret technique to temporarily possess the strength of an utmost exalted with the cultivation of a peak rank 9 martial emperor, the 13 elders with actual authority were all incomparably shocked. At the same time, the great elder with the cultivation of a peak rank 3 utmost exalted immediately made the decision to not provoke Yu Haoran. However, just as the other elders were nodding their heads in agreement, the long-armed ape's breakthrough to the divine beast realm immediately alerted the 13 elders and the black divine dragon. After discovering that the long-armed ape that was charging towards the divine beast realm was actually showing signs of transforming into a long-armed ape god, the Great Elder, who was the strongest among them, immediately overturned his previous decision and made the decision to kill it. Although the black divine dragon strongly objected to this, it was the reality that the words of a lowly person carried little weight. In the end, it did not change the murderous decision of the many elders, and could only helplessly return to its own group. At the same time, the black divine dragon, who felt that the Great Elder and the others were bound to lose, gradually developed an ambition. It wanted to recreate the ancient times when the divine dragon controlled the demon clan. In the palace of Xianyang City, after returning to the palace in a sorry state, the prideful ninth divine son, Shun Jie, did not show the slightest bit of fear in his heart because Yu Haoran had displayed the strength of a supreme being. He also had no intention of giving up. He secretly gathered 5 Emperor's teachers who were proficient in formations and spells, as well as 18 experts in the half-tribulation supreme realm, and began to discuss and prepare a plan to take revenge on Yu Haoran. Just as they found a way to restrict Yu Haoran's secret technique and came up with a plan for revenge, the long-armed ape's breakthrough to the divine beast realm caused waves of the tribulation thunder punishment, which happened to affect the palace of Xianyang City. This made Shun Jie immediately decide to lead 18 experts in the half-tribulation supreme realm and a secret treasure of the God clan to the Qinghu Mountains. Moreover, Shun Jie's performance just now made the 5 Emperor's teachers unhappy. They also jointly recommended him as the successor of the God clan. If there were no accidents, with the joint recommendation of the 5 Emperor's teachers, even if the Divine Emperor woke up in advance, the decision of the 5 Emperor's teachers could not be changed. In a valley leading to the demon-sealing secret realm, the demon's son, Mo Hao, who had suffered heavy losses, also returned to the valley in a sorry state. He did not plan to take revenge on Yu Haoran like Shun Jie did. Instead, he began to reflect deeply on himself and took the initiative to admit his mistake to the higher-ups of the clan and accept punishment. He also won the forgiveness of many elders and Emperor's teachers. When the long-armed ape's breakthrough to the divine beast realm caused waves of God's tribulation thunder punishment, which spread to the valley where the ancient demon clan was located, it immediately aroused the strong killing intent of more than a dozen elders and Emperor's teachers. They immediately made the decision to kill someone who could threaten the demon emperor in the future, even if it meant offending Yu Haoran. However, Mo Hao used his own influence and earnest persuasion to make more than a dozen elders and Emperor's teachers make the same decision as San Mieling, which was to sit back and watch the tigers fight. When the waves of God's tribulation thunder punishment caused by the long-armed ape's breakthrough to the divine beast realm spread to every corner of the Tianxian continent, nearly 90% of the forces and experts that had been passed down since ancient times made the decision to kill the long-armed ape, even if it meant offending Yu Haoran. The remaining 10% of the forces and experts also made the decision to sit back and watch the tigers fight. In the Qinghu Mountains, although the rapidly gathering black clouds had already plunged the entire mountain range into absolute darkness, Yu Haoran, who had already recovered to the peak of Emperor Wu's 7th stage divine beast realm, his vision and divine thought were not affected too much. He carefully felt the power of the God's tribulation amidst the black clouds and used his divine thought to track the range of the tribulation thunder punishment. His originally serious expression was gradually replaced by a gloomy one, and he immediately made the decision to continue sending Qin Lingfei and the others into the victor. Regarding this, Qin Lingfei and the others, who knew the seriousness of the matter, did not have any objections. However, Yu Siki, Lu Yuan, Wu Zhengjun, and Palace shook their heads and refused. This was because they felt that after advancing to the martial god realm, they already had the strength to protect the long-armed ape. They did not want to always hide behind Yu Haoran and be a fledgling who did not experience the wind and rain. Chapter 1932. In Qing, Hu Mountain Range. Boom! The dark clouds in the sky above Qing, Hu Mountain Range gathered quickly. At the same time, the god's tribulation struck even faster. Long-armed ape had just taken out the ginseng fruit that Yu Haoran gave him. Before he could eat it, a golden bolt of black with a hint of destructive aura struck down from the dark clouds above his head. It was as thick as an arm. From this point alone, one could see how much the rules of heaven hated the innate spiritual items that were born from the heavens and earth. After swallowing the ginseng fruit, long-armed ape immediately activated the ancestral bloodline in his body. He instantly turned into a giant ape that was about 1,000 meters tall. Then, he directly faced the lightning. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening explosion. Although the arm-thick golden lightning was directly shattered, a pitch-black wound was left on the long-armed ape's iron fist. Fresh blood flowed out from the wound like a stream. Boom! He didn't give the long-armed ape any chance to catch its breath. The moment the first bolt of lightning was dispersed, a second bolt of golden lightning, as thick as a bowl, immediately struck down. Fortunately, the ginseng fruit that he swallowed just happened to burst out with pure spiritual energy. After long-armed ape quickly healed the wound on his iron fist, he roared like thunder and faced the second golden lightning. With the help of the pure spiritual energy that burst out from the ginseng fruit, long-armed ape continuously shattered 5 lightning bolts formed by the god's tribulation while ensuring his own safety. However, when long-armed ape looked up and saw the power of the 6th golden lightning that struck down from the dark clouds, it was at the peak of divine realm level 1. Long-armed ape took a deep breath and slowly raised his right arm. As he slowly raised his right arm, the surrounding space gradually began to distort. Within the distorted space, the spatial turbulence surged like waves in the sea. Absorb! Along with long-armed ape's soft shout, an energy that was very similar to the rules of time and rules of space appeared in front of the 6th golden lightning. Then, it quickly enveloped the 6th golden lightning. After that, no matter how hard the 6th golden lightning tried to attack and struggle, it could not escape from the special energy. Finally, the 6th golden lightning was forcefully shrunk and sealed into a small lightning dragon that was about 1 meter long. Immediately after, the sealed lightning dragon appeared in the long-armed ape's hand out of thin air and was directly swallowed by him. Yu Haoran, the technique that the long-armed ape used to seal the 6th lightning bolt originated from one of the 4 great bloodline talents of the long-armed ape god. It can ignore the difference in strength and seize the sun and moon. Just as the long-armed ape swallowed the sealed 6th lightning dragon, Thaling, who was in the long-armed ape's sea of consciousness, reminded him with a sigh. However, Yu Haoran did not respond to the Tower Genie's reminder. Instead, he suddenly took out 4 5-colored and 6-colored spatial fruits from his storage ring, as well as a wash-basin-sized spatial crystal. Then he sat down with his legs crossed. Enlightenment, from Yu Haoran's actions just now, as well as the aura of emptiness and spirituality emanating from his body, Thaling immediately knew what state he was in. Considering that when Yu Haoran entered the state of enlightenment, the long-armed ape used the bloodline talent secret technique that contained the energy of time and space rules. At the same time, he took out the void fruits that could assist in comprehending the power of laws, as well as the spatial crystal that contained pure spatial energy. Thaling concluded that it was very likely that he was using the state of enlightenment to continue comprehending the remaining 6 auxiliary powers of laws of space. Without any hesitation, Thaling directly mobilized the energy of space rules in the victor and used a special secret technique to directly inject it into the spatial crystal, increasing the purity and grade of the spatial energy in the spatial crystal. With this, it could assist Yu Haoran in comprehending and controlling the remaining 6 auxiliary powers of laws as quickly as possible. Nothing in the void, something out of nothing. With the help of the void fruits and the increased grade and quality of the pure spatial energy, Yu Haoran entered the state of enlightenment for less than 10 seconds and successfully grasped the trace of the supreme power of law. He quickly used 3 seconds to comprehend and control it successfully. At the beginning of the world, chaos was a single entity. Clear air ascended to the heavens. Turbid air descended to the earth. A minute later, he simultaneously grasped the trace of the upper and lower power of law and used 5 seconds to successfully comprehend and control it. At this time, the 2 5-colored void fruits in his hand had completely turned into ashes, and the spatial crystal's volume had also shrunk by a fifth. Wood in the east, fire in the south, metal in the west, and water in the north. Wood breeds fire, fire melts metal, and metal transforms water. 3 minutes later, with the help of the power of law of the east that he had already comprehended and controlled, he successfully grasped the power of law of the south, law of the west, and law of the north, and used 10 seconds to successfully comprehend and control it. At this very moment, he had successfully comprehended and controlled the 12 auxiliary powers of law that could be fused into the power of the law of space. Next, he only needed to separately fuse the 4 pairs of dual elemental powers of law and the 1 pair of 4 elemental powers of law. Then he would be able to directly attack the 3rd ranked law of space. If he could successfully comprehend and control the power of the law of space, then not only would he be able to greatly increase his potential and increase his accumulation, he would also be able to use the breakthrough in his realm to advance to the profound mysteries of the law of space. If he could successfully comprehend and control the profound mysteries of the law of space, then even if a supreme being realm expert personally attacked, they would not be able to easily injure him. Just as Yu Haoran borrowed the pure spatial energy contained within the void fruits and spatial crystals to attack the power of the law of space, the long-armed ape used his innate bloodline talents, capture the sun and moon and shrink the 1,000 mountains, to successfully capture the 7th and 8th golden lightning tribulation. However, when the 8th sealed lightning tribulation was swallowed by the long-armed ape, the 9th lightning tribulation did not immediately descend from the black clouds in the sky above the mountain range. Instead, all the golden lightning and the black clouds quickly fused together. Golden-armored thunder god, Thowling muttered to himself with an incomparably solemn expression as his attention was temporarily focused on the black clouds that had gathered countless lightning energies. Just as Thowling muttered to himself, a gigantic golden foot that seemed to cover the sky suddenly extended from the black clouds. Then, with lightning speed, it ferociously stomped down on the long-armed ape. Without the slightest trace of fear, the long-armed ape borrowed the energy from refining the ginseng fruit and the 3 lightning tribulations to directly charge towards the gigantic foot. Bang! Following the long-armed ape's tightly clenched iron fist, it heavily smashed into the sole of the gigantic foot, causing an intense collision sound to resound in the sky above the mountain range. Chapter 1933. In the Qinghu mountain range, the giant golden foot did not stop attacking just because of the long-armed ape's defeat. The giant foot continued to step on the Qinghu mountain at lightning speed. As the giant golden foot was too big, it had far exceeded the entire surface area of the Qinghu mountain. This caused Yusiki and the others who were standing at the edge of the Qinghu mountain to have to temporarily distance themselves from the rapidly approaching giant golden foot. Considering that Yu Haoran was at the critical moment of his epiphany and could not be disturbed, Thowling had already used a special secret technique to move him 10,000 meters away from the Qinghu mountain the moment the long-armed ape was defeated. Crackle! As the lake water was a conductor, the moment the giant golden foot stepped on the surface of the lake, the lightning followed the lake water and struck all the living creatures in the lake. In order to successfully open up the passage to the Qinghu mountain range, Yu Haoran and Pallas had hunted down all the strange beasts in the Qinghu mountain range. This caused all the living creatures in the Qinghu mountain to be unable to withstand the damage caused by the lightning. In a short period of time, They all died tragically under the attack of the lightning. Fortunately, with his strong physical body and the strength of an early fourth-grade martial god, the lightning energy in the lake water did not cause any harm to the long-armed ape who was submerged in the mud at the bottom of the lake. At the same time, it gave the long-armed ape a chance to consume the large amount of elixirs that Howard had given him. It also gave him enough time to recover the strength that he had used to cast the Bloodline Talent's secret technique. However, when the lightning energy was guided by the lake water into the octopus lair, where Howard had found the sea-suppressing divine pearl and the crouching flower, a murderous aura that appeared out of nowhere blocked the lightning energy from entering. Sensing that someone dared to interfere with the long-armed ape's god's tribulation lightning punishment, the giant golden foot that was stepping on the surface of the Qing, whom Mountain lifted slightly. Then it stomped down forcefully. More lightning energy instantly surged into the lair and quickly erased the murderous aura that appeared out of nowhere in front of the lair. When the murderous aura in front of the lair was completely erased, the remaining lightning energy quickly surged into the lair. However, at this moment, a strong suction force appeared out of nowhere in the lair and directly absorbed all the lightning energy that entered the lair. What happened in the nest was no longer as simple as interfering with the long-armed ape's god's tribulation. It was a blatant provocation to the rules of the heavenly way. Therefore, the giant golden foot that was stepping on the surface of the Qing lake suddenly began to shrink. It directly entered the water of the Qing lake and headed straight for the octopus's nest. Due to the destructive damage caused by the lightning punishment's golden feet, the pagoda spirit did not use its spiritual sense to observe the long-armed ape that had fallen into the lake. However, when the giant golden foot began to shrink and enter the lake, Fowling realized that something might happen in the green lake. He immediately mobilized all of his divine sense and risked entering the green lake. When the golden foot, which had shrunk to the size of an adult, quickly appeared in front of the octopus's lair, an endless baleful aura suddenly emerged from the lair. Accompanied by the endless baleful aura, a terrifying aura that was like that of a peerless, ferocious beast actually made the unconscious golden foot not dare to enter the lair. However, as the giant golden foot that was formed by the rules of the heavenly way, it had the arrogance of looking down on all living things in the world and had the ability to ignore any danger. Therefore, after overcoming the fear that should not have appeared in its heart, the giant golden foot directly rushed into the lair. At the same time, Fowling, who had followed the giant golden foot to the bottom of the lake, also came to the front of the lair. Looking at the lair in front of him, which had once caused him to lose the ability to refine the Fu Ling flower, a rare treasure of the 6 realms of reincarnation, and feeling the aura that was like that of one of the 10 ancient ferocious beasts, Fowling's eyes flashed with a hint of hesitation. However, when the sounds and aura of a fierce fight came from the lair, his hesitation was quickly replaced by determination. His spiritual sense quickly rushed into the lair. However, after less than a second, Fowling's spiritual sense quickly left the lair and directly tore through the void at the bottom of the lake. In an instant, it returned to Howard's spiritual sense in the space of the sea of consciousness. At the same time, there was a look of horror in his eyes as he muttered to himself, "How is it possible? How can that zombie king still be alive?" Just as Fowling's spiritual sense left the lair, the giant golden foot also left the lair at the same time. However, compared to the majesty before entering the lair, the giant foot at this moment had not only lost all the essence of thunder and lightning energy, but also had countless cracks on its entire foot. Just as the giant golden leg left the lair, a strange ferocious beast about 2 meters tall and 5 meters long slowly walked out of the lair. It had antlers like a deer, a camel's head, cat's ears, prawn's eyes, donkey's mouth, and 2 sharp fangs. At the same time, a surge of evil spirit that soared into the sky not only alarmed Yusiki and the others in the mountain range, but also disturbed the experts of the spirits of three annihilations, the ancient demon clan, the ancient god clan, and more than a dozen other forces hidden in the void of the mountain range. This is feeling a familiar aura in the surge of evil spirit. Jouerie of the spirits of three annihilations could not help but recall. After seeing the ferocious beast walk out of the lair, the giant foot that had lost all its thunder and lightning energy quickly rose into the sky, intending to return to the tribulation clouds and the void of the mountain range. In this way, not only could it replenish the lost thunder and lightning energy, but could also completely merge with the golden armored thunder god's body, and then punish the strange, ferocious beast in its peak state. However, at this moment, the ferocious beast raised its head and roared directly at the giant foot that was quickly rising into the sky. Accompanied by the roar that stirred the entire lake water, an invisible energy wave instantly swept across the giant golden foot, causing the giant foot that was full of cracks to directly collapse. If the giant golden foot had been defeated by the long-armed ape, as a tribulation taker, the god tribulation thunder god might be very angry and send down a more powerful thunder punishment, but it would definitely not fall into a state of rage and would not disturb the slumbering heavenly way rules. However, not only was the giant golden foot defeated by the ferocious beast, but the thunder and lightning essence condensed in the giant foot was also completely devoured by the ferocious beast. This was no longer a simple provocation, but an active challenge to the heavenly way rules. Therefore, a single emotionless eye gradually appeared in the black clouds that were surging like raging waves. At the same time, a giant about 100 meters tall, wearing armor and emitting golden thunder and lightning all over his body, stepped out of the black clouds. When he saw the single eye that slowly emerged from the black clouds, Qing Feng's expression suddenly changed, and he cried out involuntarily. This is the divine eye that represents the heavenly way rules. When he saw the giant in golden armor walk out of the black clouds, his eyes revealed a look of worry, and he also cried out involuntarily. Chapter 1934. In the Qinghu mountain range, a single eye slowly appeared in the dark clouds. It first looked down at Yu Haoran, who had successfully integrated the 12 auxiliary powers of the law of space and was about to end his state of enlightenment. Then, it turned around and looked at spirits of three annihilation, who controlled the heavens' consciousness. Finally, it disappeared in the dark clouds again. However, the moment the eye was about to disappear, a light purple power of law shot out from the eye and merged into the golden armored thunder god's body. Then, the golden armored thunder god suddenly opened his eyes. With a flash of intelligence in his eyes, he descended a few thousand meters and stopped about 999 meters away from the surface of the Qinghu mountain. Then, the golden armored thunder god raised the golden sword in his hand and slashed at the Qinghu mountain below him with a golden sword energy. Boom! With a deafening boom, the golden sword energy split the Qinghu mountain into two halves, exposing the long-armed apes in the mud at the bottom of the Qinghu mountain and the strange fierce beast that was about to return to its nest. Woof! Seeing its home that had been living in seclusion for millions of years being destroyed, the strange fierce beast suddenly raised its head and let out a howl that sounded like a dog. This is the first of the 10 most ferocious beasts in the ancient times. Seeing the shape of the ferocious beast at the bottom of the Qinghu mountain and hearing the howl that sounded like a dog, the long-armed apes and palace who had inherited the ancient bloodline couldn't help but exclaim in shock. At the same time, some experts who were hiding in the void at the edge of the Qinghu mountain range were also affected by extreme shock and fear. They couldn't conceal their auras perfectly. In the end, they were discovered by Yusiki, who wasn't affected by the golden armored thunder god and the ferocious beast. However, with the awakening of the law of heaven and the appearance of the first ferocious beast, the power of the god's tribulation thunder punishment that the long-armed apes encountered had already exceeded the limit of a living being's tribulation thunder punishment. Therefore, even if they were exposed in advance, the experts of the top forces didn't care about it. Moreover, whether it was the origin of the great Tao in golden-armored thunder god's body or the blood origin essence in Huey's body, they were the best pellets to break through to the half-tribulation immortal realm. They were the treasures they had to get. Therefore, even if Yusiki did not discover them in advance, they did not intend to continue hiding. Long-armed Ape looked at the golden-armored thunder god, who was holding a huge golden sword in his hand, and the dozens of half-tribulation supreme-level experts in the void at the edge of the mountain range. Their attention was all on the ferocious beast, long-armed Ape, who had activated 80% of his ancestral bloodline, immediately felt anger and brutality from being looked down upon. The long-armed Ape stood up abruptly, intending to revert back to his original form and launch an attack at the golden-armored thunder god. Just as he was about to revive the might of his ancestor, the long-armed ape god, Thaling's voice suddenly rang out in his mind. Don't attack the golden-armored thunder god in advance, and don't provoke the savage beast Danglong. Try your best to conceal your aura for the time being, and try your best to refine the devoured lightning energy. Who are you? In the prince's mansion, apart from you Howren's two beloved ones, Qin Lingfei and the Sword Without Trace, only Wu Jingjun, Yusiki, Lu Yuan, and Palace knew about the existence of the space-time victor in Thaling. Therefore, when the voice suddenly rang out in his mind, long-armed Ape immediately became nervous. Don't be nervous. I don't have any ill intentions. Sensing the hostility of long-armed Ape, Thaling immediately comforted him. As for my origin, wait until Howren finishes his state of enlightenment, then let him tell you personally. After hearing the comforting and reminder from the voice in his mind, long-armed Ape turned his head to look at Howren, who was at the edge of the mountain range, and discovered that he had indeed entered a state of enlightenment. At the same time, long-armed Ape could also clearly feel that the voice that had just reminded him not only did not have any ill intentions, but instead revealed the kindness of an elder. Therefore, after quickly suppressing the anger in his heart and calming the violent emotions in his body, long-armed Ape bent his knees and sat down cross-legged again. Then, he used all his strength to refine the remaining thunder essence in his body while using the elixirs that Howren had given him to continue recovering his strength. He wanted to return to his peak state before the outcome of the battle between the golden-armored thunder god and fierce beast Danglong was decided. After roaring, fierce beast Danglong soared into the air and flew to the same position as the golden-armored thunder god. However, when it saw the trace of the origin of laws that flashed in its opponent's eyes immediately revealed a hungry glint, and the corner of its mouth could not stop drooling. Facing the greedy expression of fierce beast Danglong, the golden-armored thunder god's lively eyes immediately flashed with a trace of anger. Then he directly raised the golden greatsword in his hand and fiercely slashed at fierce beast Danglong. Facing the golden sword Qi that was at the peak of the 9th level of the martial god realm, fierce beast Qi neither dodged nor blocked. Instead, it opened its 4 thick claws and walked step by step toward the golden-armored thunder god. Boom! The golden sword Qi slashed heavily on fierce beast Danglong's body, immediately forming a deafening roar. Accompanied by the deafening roar, fierce beast Danglong was not killed by the golden sword Qi, and not even a single hair on its body was cut off. Instead, fierce beast Danglong took advantage of the opportunity to move a few meters closer. Seeing that his attack had no effect at all, the golden-armored thunder god's anger was instantly replaced by rage. He raised the golden greatsword in his hand again and continued to slash out a ray of sword Qi. Compared to the first ray of sword Qi, the second ray of sword Qi was at least 10 times faster, whether it was the thunder energy that it emitted or the speed of its attack. Its power had already reached the peak of the first tribulation sovereign realm. Boom! Accompanied by the second deafening roar, fierce beast Danglong, who was directly attacked by the second ray of sword Qi, also did not suffer any damage except for a slight pause in its steps. Thaling, What kind of monster is this? Just as fierce beast Dinglong was attacked by the first ray of Sword Shi, Yu Haoran, who had successfully integrated the power of the 12 auxiliary laws, had already awakened from the state of epiphany. The law of space not only had the fastest instant transfer and void travel in the world, but also had a terrifying attack power that was not inferior to the law of destruction. It was definitely the strongest trump card besides the Fouling and the space-time victor. At the same time, it was also the strongest means of confronting the spirits of three annihilation, who could control the consciousness of the heavens, and the supreme experts who were about to descend on the Tianxin continent. Therefore, even when he saw the golden armored giant and the strange monster fighting in midair, Yu Haoran did not immediately pay attention to them. Instead, he tried his best to suppress and restrain the aura of the law of space to avoid being discovered by the top experts at the edge of the mountain range. Chapter 1935. In the Qinghu mountain range. Yu Haoran, how was it? Seeing Yu Haoran awaken from his state of enlightenment, Fouling didn't have time to answer his question. Instead, he looked at Yu Haoran with eyes full of anticipation and nervousness. Fouling, with the help of the state of enlightenment just now, not only did I successfully comprehend the law of space, but I also grasped the law of space teleportation and the law of space cleave. Yu Haoran replied with a smile. Wonderful. After hearing Yu Haoran's reply, Fouling couldn't control the joy and excitement in his heart. He clenched his fists and cheered, immediately mobilizing the spatial energy within the victor and using a special secret method to compress it. In the end, he condensed 3 fist-sized, sparkling, and translucent crystals. Yu Haoran, these are crystals that contain a trace of the law of space's origin energy. They can help you comprehend the law of space at a deeper level and advance your comprehension of the law of space as soon as possible. Fouling, why is that? After using his mind to receive the 3 crystals that contain the law of space's origin energy, Yu Haoran's heart was filled with puzzlement as he asked. Relying on the large amount of spatial crystals stored in his storage ring, he had absolute confidence that he could advance his comprehension of the law of space to the next level within half a year. There was no need for Fouling to consume the law of space's origin energy within the victor. Moreover, for Fouling, who had yet to comprehend or control the law of space, the amount of law of space's origin energy within the victor was limited. At the same time, it was an irreplaceable consumption. Extracting the law of space's origin energy would inevitably weaken the power of the space-time victor. He really couldn't understand why Fouling would do such a thing. Yu Haoran, can you allow me to keep this a secret for a period of time? Faced with Yu Haoran's questioning, Fouling, after much consideration, finally requested with an awkward expression. When the law of space successfully advances to the next level, I will tell you the real reason in detail. All right. In the past, if Fouling didn't want to explain the ins and outs of a matter, he would definitely find all kinds of excuses to cover it up. This was also the reason why he made an agreement with Fouling not to hide anything from each other. Now, this was the first time Fouling had used a pleading tone and reason. Yu Haoran found it hard to refuse. Therefore, even though he was filled with doubts and puzzlement, he could only nod in agreement. Yu Haoran, although I am temporarily unable to tell you why you need to use the energy of the laws of space's origin to accelerate the advancement of the laws of space's profound mysteries, I could divulge one thing in advance. You will obtain an unimaginable harvest, and for a short period of time, you will have the power to influence and decide the situation of the profound sky continent. Fearing that Yu Haoran would be dissatisfied with his deliberate concealment, Fouling finally decided to reveal a little of the secret of using the origin energy of the space laws. I got it. Yu Haoran nodded without the slightest bit of surprise at Fouling's revelation. Then, he turned his attention back to the strange, ferocious beast that he had already fought 3 times. Fouling, you still haven't told me what kind of ferocious beast it is. Yu Haoran, that's the number 1 ferocious beast of the ancient era. It's also the only ferocious beast that has successfully created its own zombie king. It's also one of the few ferocious beasts that has advanced to the half-tribulation immortal realm. Seeing that Howren's attention had shifted to ferocious beast Ho, Thowling secretly let out a sigh of relief. He hurriedly introduced ferocious beast Ho's origin in detail. It's a good thing that he suffered an irreparable injury when the ancient times were destroyed, causing his cultivation and strength to fall to the utmost being level. Otherwise, even if the heavenly way were to personally act, it would be impossible to do anything to him. Zombie King, a half-tribulation immortal realm expert. After listening to Thowling's detailed introduction, Howren carefully recalled the memory inheritance of the Destiny Stone tablet. Finally, he found the record of the ancient era's 10 ferocious beasts. According to the Destiny Stone tablet, Ho's strength was not only ranked first among the ancient era's 10 ferocious beasts, but could also completely suppress and subdue the other 9 ferocious beasts. It also had the strength to dominate the ancient era's continent. At the same time, Ho, like the ancient witch ancestor, was the nemesis of the Dragon Clan. It enjoyed sucking the Dragon Clan's blood essence and brain matter. Even a supremacy divine dragon couldn't escape from Ho's predation. Thinking of this, Howren couldn't help but raise his head to look at the void at the edge of the mountain range. The 3 divine dragons from the ancient era's Demon Clan and the 9 half-tribulation supremacies from the Blue Dragon Clan were not only gloomy, but their eyes were also filled with intense fear. 5 times. He had used the irreconcilable sword Chi 5 times, and the 5th time, the golden sword Chi had reached the peak of the 3rd grade supremacy realm. And the result, it still couldn't hurt Ho, who didn't have any defense or counterattack at all. This made the golden-armored thunder god's lively big eyes burn with a fierce fire. At this time, Ho was less than 30 meters away from the golden-armored thunder god, and it was the best position to launch an attack. He slowly closed his eyes, and a strange energy fluctuation was slowly transferred to the giant sword. When the golden-armored thunder god opened his eyes again, the lively look in his eyes had been replaced by indifference. He continued to raise the golden giant sword in his hand, and then slashed out a sword Chi mixed with purple light. After seeing the purple sword Chi slashed out by the golden-armored thunder god, Ho, who had been very calm, suddenly had its hair all over its body stand up, and the look in its eyes became more dignified. Howren, let me take control of your physical body, and then compete for the heaven-defying opportunity that is about to appear. When Thowling also saw the purple sword Chi slashed out by the golden-armored thunder god, he immediately reminded Howren excitedly. Through the records and the memory inheritance of the Destiny Stone tablet, Howren already knew that Ho's body contained the original energy of the essence of blood, so when he heard that Thowling wanted to compete for the heaven-defying opportunity, he directly gave up his physical body without any hesitation. At the same time, the spirits of 3 annihilation hiding in the void at the edge of the mountain range, and the dozens of half-tribulation supremacy realm experts who exposed themselves in advance, were all preparing their strongest means at the same time, waiting for the moment when the golden-armored thunder god and Ho emerged as the victor. Even the 3 divine dragons, who were naturally restrained by Ho, and the 9 half-tribulation supremacy realm experts of the Blue Dragon Clan, gathered their courage and prepared to fight for it. Woof! With a roar to the sky, Ho immediately accelerated and rushed toward the purple sword Chi. At the same time, a thick layer of blood fog, which exuded a strange fragrance, appeared on the surface of its body. Chapter 1936. In the Qinghu mountain range. Boom! As fierce beast Chi sped up, it collided with the purple sword Chi. Not only did the entire Qinghu mountain range resound with a deafening boom, but the impact of the collision also completely destroyed all the trees and strange beasts in the mountain range. At the same time, even Palace, who had reached the early 3rd grade of the martial god realm, and Lu Yuan, who had reached the peak of the 6th grade of the martial god realm, were forced to retreat from the Qinghu mountain range because they couldn't withstand such a terrifying impact. As the deafening boom ended, a blood-red figure smashed into the remaining mud at the bottom of Qing, who like a meteor. This also caused the dozens of half-tribulation supremes in the void at the edge of the mountain range to rush down immediately. However, Thaling, who had temporarily gained control of his body, the spirits of 3 annihilators who were hiding in the void, and the long-armed ape who was sitting cross-legged at the edge of the mud didn't act rashly. The reason why Thaling and the spirits of 3 annihilators didn't act rashly was because they knew that fierce beast Qi, who seemed to have been defeated, hadn't suffered any serious injuries. It still had the terrifying strength to easily kill Supremes. The reason why the long-armed ape didn't take the risk was because he always remembered the warning of the mysterious expert in his mind. At the same time, because he had the bloodline of his ancestors, he wasn't interested in the blood essence in fierce beast Qi's body. Just as the 3 fastest divine dragons and the 13 half-tribulation supremes from the Hell Organization and the Rogue Cultivators Alliance rushed to the mud at the bottom of the lake, a powerful suction force suddenly emerged from the mud and enveloped the 3 divine dragons and the 13 half-tribulation supremes. Then it desperately tried to drag them into the mud at the bottom of the lake. Facing the threat of life and death, the 3 divine dragons directly spat out a trace of purple essence blood. Then, using the secret blood technique, they cut off the suction force that enveloped them and fled back to the edge of the mountain range in a sorry state. As for the 13 half-tribulation supremes, they immediately took out elixirs that could stimulate their potential and temporarily increase their strength. With the help of the suction force that enveloped them, they fled back to the edge of the mountain range with low auras. It seems that the damage suffered by Qi during the primordial collapse was much more severe than I had imagined. Seeing that the bloodline-devouring secret technique performed by fierce beast Qi was unable to trap the 3 half-tribulation supremes and the 13 half-tribulation supremes, Thaling, who was originally nervous, immediately relaxed. He planned to capture fierce beast Qi and refine it to assist Yu Haoran in breaking through to the perfected 10th grade martial god realm. At the same time, the spirits of triple annihilation, who also saw that the Denglong was not in a good state, immediately extracted a trace of rule power from the consciousness of the heavens. Then they condensed a giant hand that covered the sky and grabbed at the mud at the bottom of the lake. Thaling, wait a moment. Just as Thaling was about to capture the Denglong before the 3 spirits of annihilation did, Yu Haoran, who was in his sea of consciousness, immediately stopped him. Yu Haoran, what's wrong? Thaling, who immediately stopped charging forward, asked in confusion. Thaling, perhaps it's because I've comprehended the power of the law of space. My sensory ability has increased by dozens of times. Just now, I vaguely felt that the Denglong was not as weak as you thought. Instead, it seemed to be deliberately attracting you or the spirits of triple annihilation, who controlled the consciousness of the heavens, to take the initiative to attack, Yu Haoran speculated with a frown. After hearing Yu Haoran's speculation, Thaling showed a trace of hesitation in his eyes. Not only was the Denglong a unique, fierce beast, but it was also the only exotic beast that had mastered the origin of the rules of blood. The blood in its body was the best energy to help Yu Haoran continue to increase his potential and break through to a higher level of the physical body. It was not easy to give it up, let alone give it to the spirits of triple annihilation. However, when he thought about how Yu Haoran had not only successfully comprehended the power of the law of space, but also had the destiny stone that contained the rules of destiny in his body, Thaling decided to give up. After thinking about it again and again, Thaling finally chose to believe in Yu Haoran's premonition and extinguished his impulse to attack. Just as the giant hand that blotted out the sky reached the surface of the mud and its 5 fingers bent into the mud, the Denglong that had shrunk dozens of times in size suddenly rushed out of the mud and bit into the giant hand with its 2 sharp fangs. 1 second. In less than a second, the giant hand that blotted out the sky completely turned into dust and disappeared in front of the mud because it had lost the support of the power of law and the power of destruction. Let's go. Scorching Sun ordered Silver Moon and Starry without hesitation when he saw the ferocious Danglong glaring at him after the gigantic hand that blotted out the sky disappeared. Ignoring the spirits of triple annihilation who were desperately trying to escape, the Danglong looked directly at Yu Haoran. Or more accurately, it looked at Thaling's soul that had fused into his body. Its eyes revealed a hungry greed and desire. Thaling, return to the space of the knowledge, see immediately. Yu Haoran, who also felt the greedy and longing eyes of the Danglong, ordered Thaling with a sudden change of expression. Yu Haoran, who had instantly controlled his body, immediately secretly mobilized the power of the law of space that he had just comprehended. He was ready to perform the law martial technique of space teleportation at any time to get rid of the Danglong's pursuit. Just as Thaling's soul returned to the space of a knowledge, see, and quickly returned to Victor's body, the greed and longing in the eyes of the Danglong were replaced by doubt. Then, he continued to watch Yu Haoran for a few seconds. After confirming that the soul in the human body could not meet the energy needed to heal the injury, the Danglong's eyes turned back to the golden-armored Thunder God. After losing the power of law given by the heavenly way, the golden-armored Thunder God was only left with the instinct given by the God's tribulation thunder punishment. Therefore, in the face of the Danglong who dared to interfere with the long-armed ape deity's tribulation thunder punishment, the golden-armored Thunder God rushed toward the Danglong as fast as lightning and began to detonate all the thunder energy in his body. Unfortunately, the golden-armored Thunder God, who had lost the support of the power of law, no longer had the strength to challenge the Danglong. Even if the power of this self-detonating thunder energy reached the peak of the sixth grade supreme, it still could not hurt the Danglong at all. Therefore, the Danglong simply ignored the golden-armored Thunder God that was rushing toward him. He opened his mouth and sucked hard at the scattered lake water around the mountain range. Then, countless lake water fell back to the mud at the bottom of the lake. At the same time, the long-armed ape deity also quickly got up and flew back to the place where he had just endured the thunder punishment. Finally, in less than 2 seconds, the green lake returned to its original appearance. At this time, the golden-armored Thunder God rushed to his side and began to detonate the huge thunder energy in his body. However, a sharp claw that suddenly pierced into the forehead of the golden-armored Thunder God not only forcibly suppressed the thunder energy of the self-detonation, but also directly wiped out the instinct given by the God's tribulation thunder punishment. Chapter 1937. In the Qinghu mountain range. Boom! The golden-armored Thunder God was struck by the milky white energy, and its huge body was instantly blasted into countless lightning bolts. Then, countless lightning bolts enveloped the entire mountain range like a thunderstorm, quickly descending and merging into the ground of the mountain range. The countless trees and exotic plants that were destroyed by the terrifying impact of the collision between the fierce beast Qi and the purple sword Qi were reborn. Instantly, the entire Qinghu mountain range was brimming with vitality. The only regrettable thing was that even though the thunderstorm contained a huge amount of life essence, it was unable to revive the dead strange beasts. After all, the death of exotic beasts involved their souls. It wasn't a simple life essence that could bring them back to life. Ignoring the long-armed ape in the air and the half-tribulation, supreme being experts in the void at the edge of the mountain range, the ferocious beast Danglong glanced at Yu Haoran with a gaze full of curiosity. Then, it directly sank into the green lake that had recovered. Thaling, it seems like the Qinghu mountain range can completely replace the Blood Mist mountain range and officially become one of the 10 great forbidden lands in the Tianxin continent. Looking at the fierce beast Qi that had sunk back into the Qinghu mountain range, Yu Haoran sighed with a complicated expression as he recalled how the fierce beast Qi could easily resist the power of the heavenly way. That's right. Thaling nodded in agreement with Yu Haoran's sigh. A trace of worry flashed across his eyes. However, When he thought about how Yu Haoran would control the prince's mansion to return to the southern region 100 Chi Gate, the worry in his eyes was instantly replaced by relief. After the golden-armored thunder god was completely killed by the fierce beast Chi, it meant that the long-armed ape had successfully passed the god's tribulation lightning punishment. Therefore, after receiving Yu Haoran's reassuring gaze, the long-armed ape immediately sat down cross-legged and waited for the reward of the god's tribulation lightning punishment. At the same time, the dozens of experts in the void at the edge of the mountain range rushed towards the long-armed ape, who was sitting cross-legged in midair. "Do you want to die?" Yu Haoran directly activated the law of flash and speed and appeared in front of the long-armed ape. His expression was as cold as ice as he threatened. At the same time, Yu Siki, Qing Feng, and the rest hurriedly stood behind Yu Haoran. Their expressions were extremely solemn, and their eyes were filled with vigilance as they looked at the dozens of half-tribulation supreme beings who were rushing towards them. "Yu Haoran, if you step aside right now, all the grudges between us can be written off, and we can even form an alliance that advances and retreats together. After that, we can work together to fight for the slim chance in the immeasurable calamity, and even divide the new world created by the Destiny's Child in the future." A third tribulation, supreme being expert from world cleansing, suggested with a strange smile in his eyes. Or rather, it could be said that he was tempting them. "A mere third tribulation supreme ant, what qualifications do you have to discuss the matter of an alliance with this prince consort? Why would this prince consort care about the grudges between your pure world organization?" Yu Haoran was prepared to hand over control of his body at any time. His eyes revealed a trace of disdain and mockery. "Despicable brat, you're courting death." After hearing Yu Haoran's mockery, the third tribulation supreme being expert immediately scolded angrily. Then, he signaled to his 4 companions from world cleansing. Subsequently, the 5 third tribulation supreme being experts each took out a divine realm formation flag and quickly rushed towards Yu Haoran. "You guys are to temporarily abide by the law for the senior." After turning his head to instruct Qing Feng and Yu Siki, Yu Haoran took the initiative to meet them. At the same time, he also took the opportunity to hand over control of his body to Thaling. The quaking 5 elements formation. Thaling allowed the 5 third tribulation supreme being expert from world cleansing to envelop him with the formation. With just a glance, he recognized the origin of the formation that the other party had set up. Second doppelganger. The Penta-Quaking 5 Elements formation is a formation that integrates both attack and defense. However, the biggest difference between it and other formations is that the Penta-Quaking 5 Elements formation does not have a single formation point. The 5 experts holding the formation flags are all the cornerstones of the formation. After recognizing the origin of the formation that the 5 third tribulation supreme being experts had set up, Thaling directly summoned his second doppelganger, who was preparing to break through the formation deity realm. While explaining the principle of the Penta-Quaking 5 Elements formation in detail, he personally taught his second doppelganger how to break the formation. The way to break the Penta-Quaking 5 Elements formation is very simple. That is, rely on your own strength to attack the 5 cornerstones of the formation at the same time, so that the formation cannot concentrate all its power on one point. Boom! As Thaling stretched out his 5 fingers, 5 rays of light purple energy shot out and accurately hit the 5 third tribulation supreme being experts who were moving quickly. The power of vibration that the Penta-Quaking 5 Elements formation had condensed stopped less than 1 centimeter away from Thaling. Then, the terrifying power of vibration suddenly turned around and directly counterattacked the 5 third tribulation supreme being experts who had set up the formation and had already been seriously injured. Withdraw the formation at once. When the strongest third tribulation supreme being expert saw that the power of vibration condensed by the formation had begun to counterattack, his expression changed and he shouted loudly to his 4 companions. But compared to the extreme speed of the counterattack of the power of vibration, the speed at which they withdrew the formation was much slower. In the end, the bodies and souls of the 5 third tribulation supreme being experts were completely shattered by the power of vibration. This was also the first time that the World Purification Organization, which had been passed down for countless years, had suffered such a heavy loss. After all, 5 third tribulation supreme being experts were almost the strongest existing strength of a top inheritance family or top sect. Set up the formation. Just as the 5 third tribulation supreme being experts of the World Purification Organization died tragically in the quaking 5 elements formation that they had set up, the 18 half tribulation supreme being expert from the Blue Dragon clan, the White Tiger clan, and the Vermilion Bird clan were not afraid at all. After the peak 3rd tribulation supreme being experts from the Blue Dragon clan called out to the other 17 companions, they quickly scattered around Thaling. Then, they each took out a formation flag at the peak of the God Realm and began to set up the 4 Divine Beast formation around Thaling, which the Guardian clans relied on for survival. You, Howren, although you have obtained the formation flags of the 4 Divine Beast formation from the 4 Symbols sect and have personally set up the 4 Divine Beast formation, the 4 Symbols sect's formation pales in comparison to the Guardian clans that truly created this kind of formation. It's not even worth mentioning. While watching the 18 half-tribulation, supreme being experts of the Guardian clans set up the formation, Thaling explained in detail to Yu Howren and his second clone the core principles of the 4 Divine Beast formation, as well as its peak strength. In ancient times, the Blue Dragon, the White Tiger, the Vermilion Bird, and the Black Tortoise, who had just advanced to the Supreme Being realm, once used the 4 Divine Beast formation to trap and kill the Golden Dragon, who was at the peak of the 7th grade Supreme Being realm. It also rendered the Dragon God King, who was at the peak of the 9th grade Supreme Being realm, unable to do anything to them. Chapter 1938. In the Qing Hu mountain range. It's a pity that without the participation of the Black Tortoise clan, who is proficient in formations, the so-called 4 Divine Beast formation that has reached the sovereign level is only an incomplete formation. Along with Thaling's disdainful and mocking voice, dozens of light purple energy successively struck the fatal flaw of the formation's defense. This caused the 4 Divine Beast formation, which had been painstakingly arranged, to fall apart in an instant. It also caused the 18 half-tribulation supremes of the Guardian family to suffer the backlash of the formation's collapse. Their bodies and souls instantly suffered unimaginable damage. Siki, I'll leave these people to you. You must kill them all. Thaling instructed Siki as he pointed at the Guardian family's experts whose auras had all fallen to the First Tribulation Supreme Realm. He knew that the person who had ordered him to act was none other than Supreme Violet Spirit, the one who had accompanied and protected his younger brother. At the same time, she had unlocked the memories of the second-generation Supreme Exalt, allowing her to truly understand the origins and strength of Supreme Violet Spirit. Therefore, Siki nodded respectfully in response, then took out the Celestial Ending Sword and charged over. Thaling, who believed that Siki would be able to deal with the experts from the Guardian families, turned his gaze towards the remaining experts and asked with a hint of provocation in his eyes, "Who's next?" After the most powerful experts from the top forces exchanged glances, a 3rd Tribulation Supreme Being from the Rogue Cultivators Alliance walked out with his 8 companions. Then, the strongest half-tribulation Supreme expert took out a magic weapon that was yellow in color and shaped like an umbrella from the independent space he created. Connate Spirit Treasure, Chaos Soul, Stabilizing Umbrella. After seeing the magic tool that the other party had taken out, Thaling's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise as he explained the origin of the magic tool. Yu Howren, the Primordial Soul Stabilizing Umbrella, is one of the few primordial spiritual treasures that can trap Supremes. It's also one of the few primordial spiritual treasures I can use to kill artifact spirits. Thaling, can you take back the Primordial Soul Stabilizing Umbrella? Yu Howren asked expectantly. No problem. Thaling smiled and nodded, knowing that Yu Howren wanted to seize the Chaos Soul Stabilizing Umbrella. Rumor has it that the emperor's son-in-law not only possesses unparalleled cultivation talent and potential, but also has the ability to know everything. Seeing Yuhaoran recognize the true origin of the umbrella-shaped magic tool in his hand at a glance, the strongest person from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance praised with a trace of surprise in his eyes. It seems that the rumors are true. You flatter me. Thowling responded indifferently. The 5 fingers of his right hand that were hidden in his sleeves began to quietly condense a seal. He then used the space-time energy of the original victor to quietly integrate the seal into the Chaos Soul stabilizing umbrella. Prince Consort, the Tongbi divine ape's temperament is unreasonable and tyrannical, and its actions are lawless. In the ancient era, it had committed crimes that were as great as the heavens. If we allow the Tongbi divine ape to successfully revert to its ancestry, I'm afraid it will bring an unimaginable disaster to the Tianxin continent. The strongest rogue cultivator holding the Chaos Soul stabilizing umbrella did not make a move immediately. Instead, he patiently explained the facts and reasons, hoping that Yuhaoran would not continue to protect him, or even take the initiative to kill the Tongbi divine ape. Just do it. Thowling could not be bothered to continue listening to the other party's nonsense. He impatiently interrupted the other party, and then ordered with an indifferent expression. Since the emperor's son-in-law is so stubborn, then don't blame me, Ren Yuzhen, for being merciless. Seeing that his earnest persuasion had not only failed to persuade Yuhaoran to turn over a new leaf, but also caused the other party to impatiently urge him, the strongest rogue cultivator immediately felt extremely annoyed. After a cold threat, he directly threw out the Chaos Soul stabilizing umbrella in his hand. Then, he directly joined forces with the 8 companions behind him and simultaneously released their divine power and soul power to quickly open the surface of the Chaos Soul stabilizing umbrella. At the same time, they also completely activated the power of the innate spiritual treasure. Looking up at the fully opened Chaos Soul stabilizing umbrella, Thowling did not make a move to attack, nor did he dodge. He allowed the special energy of the Chaos Soul stabilizing umbrella to trap him. Do it! Seeing that the Chaos Soul stabilizing umbrella had successfully trapped Yuhaoran, a look of surprise flashed across Ren Yuzhen's eyes, and he immediately ordered the 8 companions behind him. When the 9 half-tribulation Supreme Being experts of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance were preparing to combine their strongest attack, Thowling, who had not made a move until now, revealed a strange smile on his face. He stretched out his hand and pointed at the Chaos Soul stabilizing umbrella above his head. The Chaos Soul stabilizing umbrella, which had been aimed at Thowling, suddenly turned its mouth to aim at Ren Yuzhen and the other 8 people. Moreover, the special energy used to trap and defend also instantly enveloped Ren Yuzhen and the other 8 people. What's going on? Seeing that the primordial spiritual treasure, the Chaos Soul stabilizing umbrella, which was supposed to be used against Yuhaoran, had suddenly turned its spearhead against him, Ren Yuzhen cried out in disbelief. Unfortunately, the experts of the top forces who wanted to answer him did not know what was going on. Even if Thowling knew what was going on, he would not be so kind as to tell him. Therefore, when the umbrella was closed again, the 9 people who were struggling in disbelief were sucked back into the umbrella. Then, the Chaos Soul stabilizing umbrella slowly fell into Thowling's hands. Sizzle. Seeing that Yuhaoran could easily seize control of the primordial spiritual treasure, the Chaos Soul stabilizing umbrella, the remaining 60 half-tribulation Supreme Being experts could not help but gasp. At the same time, a hint of fear flashed across their eyes. In particular, the experts of the Primordial Deity clan, the Ancient Underworld clan, and the 3 families of inheritance, who were also preparing to use primordial spiritual treasures to deal with Yuhaoran, showed hesitation in their eyes. They were considering whether to immediately give up the plan to kill the long-armed ape and temporarily escape from Qinghu mountain range. Who's next to attack? After returning the Chaos Soul stabilizing umbrella to Yu Howren's hands in the sea of consciousness space and imparting the secret method of refining primordial spiritual treasures to him. Thowling continued to ask indifferently. In the face of Yu Howren's blatant provocation, most of the experts of the top forces showed hesitation in their eyes. Only the 12 divine beasts from the primordial demon clan rushed toward Yu Howren with strong murderous intent in their eyes. At the same time, they each took out a formation flag, which was engraved with the portraits of the 12 strongest ancestors of sorcery. Yu Howren, I'm afraid that we will need to join forces to easily break the 12 divine beings killing formation set up by the primordial demon clan. As the 12 divine beasts swallowed the formation flags in his hands, their bodies continued to grow bigger and emitted endless black smoke. Thowling's face suddenly revealed a strange smile. As someone who had also reached the peak of the Supreme Being realm in the field of formations, Thowling could count the number of formations that could make him feel fearful and helpless, whether it was from the primordial age, the middle age, or the recent age. Chapter 1939. In the Qinghu Mountain Range. No problem. In the memory inheritance of the 12 strongest ancestral sorcerers from ancient times, there is not only detailed information about the 12 divine beings slaughtering formation, but also the method to break the formation. Therefore, after hearing Thowling's suggestion, Yu Howren nodded in reply and regained control of his body. Then, he immediately restored the body of the ancient ancestral sorcerer and directly activated the purest ancestral sorcerer bloodline in his body. With the help of the ancestral sorcerer's body and bloodline, he directly looked for the weakness of the formation and let Thowling attack it personally. However, at the moment when the bloodline of the ancestral sorcerer was activated, the black smoke condensed by the 12 divine beings slaughtering formation rushed over like a hungry wolf. It ignored the strong defense formed by the ancestral sorcerer's body and entered his body through the countless pores of his body. Then, it quickly merged with the blood flowing in his veins. Seeing that the strong defense formed by the ancestral sorcerer's body could not resist the invasion of the black smoke that was quickly gathering, Yu Howren instinctively wanted to ask Thowling for help. Then, he unexpectedly found that the black smoke that merged with his blood did not cause him any harm. Instead, it helped to improve the level and strength of his body by quickly purifying the impurities in his blood. Yu Howren, the 12 divine beings slaughtering formation, was set up with the blood essence of the ancient ancestral sorcerer. The black smoke condensed in the formation is actually the essence of the ancestral sorcerer's blood essence. Thinking of this, the blood essence of the ancestral sorcerer should have been specially collected and stored by the demon tribe in ancient times. Knowing the process of the changes in Yu Howren's body and the reason why he was surprised, Thowling explained with a smile. For other creatures, the attack of the black smoke is fatal, but for you, the only pure ancestral sorcerer left in the world, the black smoke is a panacea to improve the body of the ancestral sorcerer. After hearing Thowling's reminder, Yu Howren, who was completely relieved, carefully felt the improvement of his body after the black smoke purified his bloodline. Then, a look of wild joy appeared in his eyes. This was because he found that his body, which had reached the peak of the 8th level of the martial god realm, had a vague trend of breaking through the 9th level of the martial god realm. Moreover, the breakthrough of the physical body under such circumstances would not affect the loosening of the overall cultivation base at all, nor would it attract the descent of the gods' tribulation thunder. Simply put, the black smoke condensed by the 12 capital heaven divine ray formation could further increase his potential and increase his accumulation. Without any hesitation, Yu Howren bent his knees and sat down. He then completely removed the defense of the ancestral magus body, allowing the black smoke to surge into his body like a tide. At the same time, he took out a few pills to improve his body. Then he assisted the black smoke in breaking through to the 9th grade martial god realm to increase his potential. Due to the black smoke condensed by the 12 divine fiends formation, It possessed the power to directly injure Supreme Being experts. Therefore, although the dozens of half-tribulation Supremes outside the formation wanted to know the situation inside the black smoke, none of them dared to use their divine sense to spy on it. At this moment, they could only look at the black smoke with anticipation. At this moment, they could not help but pray in their hearts that the black smoke could severely injure or even kill Yu Haoran directly. However, Lu Yuan, Wu Jingjun, and Palace, who were guarding in front of the long-armed ape, did not intend to help. Instead, they stopped Qing Feng, who was preparing to attack the mythical beast that had merged with the formation flag. Senior brother Qing Feng, Yu Shixiang has the help of a benefactor. He will not be in any danger. I just need to wait patiently. This was the explanation that Wu Zhengjun gave to Qing Feng through divine sense when he was angrily questioned by Qing Feng. Although he did not know who the benefactor that Wu Zhengjun mentioned was, Qing Feng guessed that this benefactor must have the cultivation of a supreme master when he thought about how Yu Haoran could use a special secret method to directly reach the peak of the second tribulation Supreme Being realm and the true Supreme Being realm. Therefore, he was completely at ease and continued to protect the long-armed ape. Boom! Just as everyone present was paying attention to the black smoke condensed by the 12 divine beings' ominous formation, after nearly 5 minutes of silence, the black clouds above the long-armed ape's head suddenly began to rumble with endless thunderous roars. Accompanied by the deafening roar of thunder, countless hair-like golden lightning bolts struck down like a torrential downpour. This is the 10th thunder punishment of the divine tribulation. It is also the legendary spiritual tribulation. Seeing the countless golden thunderbolts bombarding down like a heavy rainstorm, a memory suddenly emerged in Palace's bloodline inheritance. He could not help but cry out involuntarily. Lu Yuan quickly informed the others to stay away from the range of the thunder punishment. Just as Lu Yuan was shocked by the sudden thunder punishment, the Xian Yuan, Sword's device spirit, who also understood the power of the spiritual tribulation, reacted in time and hurriedly reminded him. Senior brother Qing Feng, junior brother Wu, brother Qi, quickly leave here. After being reminded by the Xian Yuan, Sword's device spirit, Lu Yuan, who quickly recovered from the shock, immediately shouted at Qing Feng and the others. Without any hesitation, Qing Feng, Wu Jingjun, and Palace immediately rushed toward the black smoke condensed by the 12 divine beings' ominous formation. Fortunately, the long-armed ape had followed Yu Haoran's instructions in advance and had been using the remaining pure thunderbolt energy and elixirs in his body to increase his cultivation and strength. Therefore, in the face of the countless thunderbolts bombarding down like a heavy rainstorm, he stood up without the slightest bit of panic. He quickly transformed into a towering ape that was more than 2,000 meters tall. Then, relying on his strong physical body and the bloodline-gifted martial technique, he used all his strength to resist the bombardment of the 10th thunder punishment. Fortunately, in order not to affect the long-armed ape's receiving of the thunder punishment, Yu Haoran chose a position close to the edge of the mountain range to avoid the attack of the 10th thunder punishment. Yu Haoran immediately used the Great Devouring technique to speed up the absorption of the black smoke. Because the long-armed ape's divine tribulation has changed, I'm afraid I'll need your help personally. Although the black smoke condensed by the 12 divine beings' ominous formation had the power to harm a primordial expert, Thowling had at least a dozen secret techniques that could extend his divine thought. Therefore, when he heard the sudden thunder from outside the black smoke, he hurriedly used the space-time energy to wrap it up and used his divine thought to check on the long-armed ape situation. Then, he saw the 10th thunder punishment, which was the legendary spiritual tribulation. The spiritual tribulation, also known as the ancestral tribulation, was a tribulation that targeted innate spiritual beings when they evolved into divine beasts. Originally, Thowling thought that the legendary spiritual tribulation would not appear at all. Even if it did appear, it should be something that defied the natural order, like the empty spirit mouse and the doomed spirit mouse. Chapter 1940. In the Qing-Hu mountain range, Yu Haoran used the black smoke condensed by the 12 divine beings' killing formation to avoid loosening his cultivation and attracting the divine tribulation thunder punishment. His body successfully advanced to the early 9th level of the martial god realm and continued to strive for a higher realm. However, at this moment, he suddenly heard Thaling mention that the divine tribulation thunder punishment of the long-armed ape had encountered change. The memory inheritance of the Destiny Stone tablet immediately reminded him of the legendary spiritual tribulation. According to the records of the Destiny Stone tablet, although the spiritual tribulation thunder punishment had many forms, they all had one thing in common, which was that the thunder punishment lasted for a long time and affected a wide area. More importantly, the spiritual tribulation was the only divine tribulation that was beyond the control of the rules of heaven. It was also the only thunder punishment that others could interfere with. Thus, after hearing the Tower Spirit's warning, Yu Haoran was extremely shocked. He immediately used the devouring technique with all his might, devouring the black smoke condensed by the formation like a whirlwind. This not only allowed his body to advance to the middle and high 9th level of the martial god realm quickly, but also caused the essence blood of the ancestors of the sorcerer's essence blood in the hands of the 12 half-tribulation supremes of the ancient demon clan to disappear quickly. Just as all of the ancestral witch's blood essence was completely consumed, the formation that continued to condense the black smoke was no longer able to allow Yu Haoran's figure to appear in front of everyone. At the same time, the 12 half-tribulation supreme being experts of the demon clan turned pale with fright. Thaling quickly completed the exchange of control of the body. After regaining control of the body, he immediately used the strength of the supreme realm to easily kill the divine souls of the 12 divine beasts of the demon clan. He also took the formation flags that were used to set up the 12 divine beings' killing formation, as well as the bodies of the 12 divine beasts. After that, Yu Haoran immediately took control of the body and turned to look at the golden lightning that was bombarding him like a rainstorm. Looking at the thunder punishment in front of him, which was exactly the same as what was recorded in the Destiny Stone tablet, he quickly used his divine thought to inform Yusiki, Qing Feng, and the others to continue to retreat. After that, he took a deep breath and directly rushed into the thunderstorm that filled the sky. Although the thunderstorm-like golden yellow lightning was only as thick as a strand of hair, the might of each golden yellow lightning had reached peak rank 9 martial emperor. Not to mention the divine spirit experts in the martial god realm. Even a real supreme being would not be able to withstand the continuous attacks of countless experts at the peak of level 9 of Emperor Wu. Not to mention the long-armed ape who was only an early 4th grade martial god. Therefore, Yu Haoran, who had quickly rushed into the sky full of thunderbolts, relied on the strong defense of the ancestral wizard's body to withstand the countless golden thunderbolts. At the same time, he quickly searched for the long-armed ape. In the end, at the center of the lightning tribulation, he saw the long-armed ape whose height was over 5,000 meters. Its aura had reached the peak 5th grade martial god realm. Little friend, why did you barge into my god's tribulation? Sensing the aura of a living being approaching, the long-armed ape suddenly repelled a large amount of golden thunderbolts. At the same time, he turned his head to look with a vigilant expression. Then, he saw Yu Haoran, who maintained the ancestral wizard's body. Senior, if you want to pass through the spiritual tribulation that will allow you to completely revert to your ancestors, you can't just rely on repelling the thunderbolts. Seeing that the long-armed ape did not suffer any damage from the spiritual tribulation, Yu Haoran secretly let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, he quickly used his divine thought to condense the complete version of the devouring technique. Then, he used the power of the law of space to teleport the condensed divine thought into the long-armed ape's forehead. He also told him in detail about the origin and effect of the devouring technique. After hearing that the devouring technique could devour anything and everything, a trace of ecstasy flashed in the long-armed ape's eyes. Then, he immediately began to cultivate the devouring technique. With the help of the golden thunderbolts that filled the sky, he tested and improved the power of the devouring technique. Seeing that the long-armed ape had successfully grasped the essence of the devouring technique in less than a minute, Yu Haoran was completely relieved. At the same time, he directly distanced himself from the center of the spiritual tribulation. The spiritual tribulation was a test and tribulation for the innate life forms to completely transform their physique and soul. In the rainstorm-like golden thunderbolts, not only did they contain pure energy that was specially used to improve the grade of the physical body, they also had the effect of helping to improve the comprehension of the state of mind and the grade of the soul power. Therefore, Yu Haoran relied on the strong defense of the ancestral wizard's body to withstand the attack of the golden thunderbolts. At the same time, he also used the devouring technique to devour a large amount of golden energy. With the help of the pure thunderbolt energy contained in the golden thunderbolts, he continued to improve the grade of his physical body. At the same time, he began to consciously improve the realm of his state of mind and soul power. He used it to strengthen his accumulation and lay a good foundation for breaking through to the complete 10th grade martial god realm in the future. Even the 12 divine beings' ominous formation set up by the ancient demon clan was unable to do anything to Yu Haoran. This caused the over 60 half-tribulation supremes present to reveal a look of fear in their eyes, especially when they saw that Yu Haoran actually dared to interfere with the long-armed ape's spiritual tribulation lightning punishment. The fear in their eyes was replaced by terror. The strongest experts of the few top forces looked at each other and discovered that each of them had the intention of retreating in their eyes. However, they had already severely offended Yu Haoran and the long-armed ape. Before seeing the final result of the spiritual tribulation lightning punishment, none of the half-tribulation supremes present would willingly leave. Therefore, as they prepared to retreat at any time, their eyes were filled with anticipation as they looked at the thunderstorm that filled the sky. They prayed that Yu Haoran and the long-armed ape would finally die in the spiritual tribulation lightning punishment. However, what made them feel incomparably disappointed was that the spiritual tribulation lightning punishment that had lasted for nearly 40 minutes did not disappear. Instead, from the center of the spiritual tribulation lightning punishment, two terrifying auras that were like that of ferocious beasts were emitted. Let's go. The strongest experts of the few inherited clans, whose fear had finally overcome their wishful thinking, turned their heads to give orders to their clansmen behind them. Immediately, they tore open the void and left the Qinghu mountain range. Let's go. After another 10 minutes, seeing that the spiritual tribulation lightning punishment did not show any signs of dissipating and that the aura in the center of the spiritual tribulation lightning punishment was getting stronger, the strongest experts from the Xiandao school and the Shangguan clan finally cautiously led their clansmen away from the Qinghu mountain range. At this moment, in the void above the Qinghu mountain range, there were only 9 half-tribulation supremes from the ancient God clan and 5 half-tribulation supremes from the ancient Nether clan left. Join forces. The strongest expert of the ancient God clan turned his head to look at the strongest expert of the Nether clan with a gloomy expression. His eyes were filled with desire as he asked, "Join forces." Without any hesitation, the strongest expert of the ancient Nether clan immediately nodded his head in agreement. The map of the universe, the number 1 binding Dharma artifact among the innate spiritual treasures. Chapter 1941. Qinghu Mountain Range. Seeing the primordial god clan's strongest expert take out the top innate spiritual treasure, the map of the universe, a strange look flashed in the eyes of the primordial underworld clan's strongest expert. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. He knew that the other party wanted to use the map of the universe's powerful binding ability to take the initiative after they joined forces. However, how could the proud primordial underworld clan's strongest expert be willing to submit to someone else's leadership and command? Therefore, after the primordial underworld clan's strongest expert put away the strange look in his eyes, a confident smile appeared on his face as he took out a dazzling golden magic tool. It was shaped like a Big Dipper, the primordial spiritual treasure with the strongest spirit attack, the primordial golden dipper. When he saw the primordial underworld clan's strongest expert take out the primordial underworld clan's strongest expert, his expression suddenly changed as he cried out involuntarily. "That's right. The primordial underworld clan's strongest expert," said with a chuckle as he nodded to confirm. "Elder Shun Xian. Who will be the one giving the orders next?" "Huh." Elder Shun Xian laughed awkwardly in the face of the primordial underworld clan's strongest expert's questioning. He pointed at the map of the universe in his hand and explained. "Elder A. Xinjing, the map of the universe is for trapping, while the primordial golden dipper is for killing. It's a combination of one attacking and one defending. I don't think we need anyone to give the orders." Whether it was the primordial Yao clan or the primordial God clan and the primordial underworld clan, although they weren't absolute enemies, they were always on guard against each other. Even if Elder Xinxian was willing to listen to orders, a Xinjing didn't dare to truly trust him. Therefore, a Xinjing smiled and nodded in the face of Elder Shun Xian's explanation. "In that case, when the spirit tribulation lightning punishment ends, the God Clan's strongest expert will be responsible for using the map of the universe to trap Yu Haoran and the long-armed ape. The primordial underworld clan's strongest expert will use the primordial golden dipper to directly destroy the souls of Yu Haoran and the long-armed ape." "Okay." Elder Shun Xian immediately nodded in agreement with a Xinjing suggestion. 1 hour. The golden lightning rain from the spiritual tribulation lasted for an entire hour before it finally showed signs of weakening. This also allowed everyone present to truly witness the terror of the legendary spiritual tribulation. At the center of the lightning punishment, the long-armed ape that was about to pass the spirit tribulation lightning punishment not only reached a height of 9,999 meters, but its light purple hair was also completely replaced by dark purple hair. The only thing left was the pile of hair on his forehead, which had yet to completely transform. At the same time, a terrifying murderous aura that was not inferior to the Dunglong's vaguely emanated from his body. Raising his head and looking at the golden lightning bolts descending from the dark clouds, long-armed ape stretched out his arms and performed the devouring great art with all his strength. He wanted to use the last of the lightning energy from the thunder punishment to achieve the final transformation of his bloodline. 1,000 meters away from the center of the lightning punishment, Yu Haoran was sitting cross-legged in the air with his legs bent. Not only was his ancestral, which body infinitely close to the 99,999 meters of the sovereign realm, but his originally dark yellow skin had also been completely replaced by a bronze color. It gave people a feeling that he had returned to his natural state. Of course, what really made him go wild with joy was not the transformation of his ancestral witch body. Instead, it was the grade of his physical body, mental state, and soul power that had smoothly advanced to the peak of the 9th grade martial god realm without touching the bottleneck of his cultivation and triggering the god tribulation lightning punishment. Next, he only needed to use the remaining bit of chaotic spiritual energy to raise his divine power to the peak of the 9th grade martial god realm. Then, he could officially break through to the martial god realm and completely make up for his overdrawn lifespan and lost potential. Raising his head and looking at the golden lightning bolts descending from the dark clouds, Yu Haoran dispersed his ancestral witch transformation. He also stretched out his arms and performed the devouring great art with all his strength. He wanted to use the last of the lightning energy from the thunder punishment to push the grades of his 3 auxiliary realms to the peak. He wanted to make sufficient preparations to break through to the complete 10th grade martial god realm. Whether it was the long-armed ape that was about to complete the atavism transformation, or Yu Haoran that had the strength to break through to the complete 10th grade martial god realm, the amount and speed of the lightning energy from the thunder punishment using the devouring great art had reached an unimaginably terrifying level. Therefore, the golden lightning that filled the sky was completely devoured by the man and the beast in the blink of an eye. This also revealed Yu Haoran and the long-armed ape to everyone's eyes. Attack! Elder Shun Xian, who had been secretly prepared, immediately ordered the 8 half-tribulation supremes behind him when he saw Yu Haoran and the long-armed ape. Get ready to attack. At the same time, Xinjing also immediately raised the primeval dipper in his hand. The dipper's opening was aimed directly at Yu Haoran and the long-armed ape. He also signaled to the 4 half-tribulation supremes behind him. Although the golden lightning from the spiritual tribulation thunder punishment could greatly increase the strength of the spirit, it could also seriously threaten the safety of the spirit. Therefore, when Yu Haoran entered the range of the spiritual tribulation thunder punishment, not only did Thowling not continue to use his divine thought to be vigilant of the surrounding situation, but he also took the initiative to retreat into the victor's body. This caused Yu Haoran and the long-armed ape to only react when Elder Shin Xian's map of the world was above their heads. Seeing the speed of the map of the world, it was already too late for Thowling to regain control of his body to resist and counterattack. Yu Haoran did not hesitate at all. He immediately activated the power of the law of space that he had just comprehended and used the law of space teleportation martial technique to narrowly avoid the map of the world. However, the long-armed ape, who had a slightly slower reaction, was forcibly fixed in place by the map of the world. Fortunately, Yu Haoran, who had escaped in time, quickly completed the exchange of control of his body with Thowling. The furious Thowling immediately used the terrifying strength of the Supremacy Realm and directly attacked the 9 half-tribulation supremes of the Primordial God Clan. Yu Haoran had successfully escaped the restraint of the map of the world, which also indicated that the plan to kill the long-armed ape had failed. Xinjing, who knew that he was no match for Yu Haoran, quickly put away the primeval dipper and directly tore the void in front of him. At the same time, he ordered the 4 half-tribulation supremes behind him. Retreat. Thowling, who had quickly killed the 9 Primordial God Clan experts, did not stop the 5 Primordial Underworld Clan experts from escaping. His 10 fingers quickly gathered the remaining aura of the primeval dipper celestial artifact, and his eyes revealed a trace of nostalgia. Thowling put away the map of the world that trapped the long-armed ape first. Yu Haoran hurriedly reminded him when he saw Thowling, who was immersed in his memories, and saw that the black clouds in the void above the mountain range had already cracked open. A milky white energy that was like an ocean was about to wash down. Chapter 1942. In Qing, Hu Mountain Range. Yu Haoran, give a map of the universe to Yunxiang. The heaven and earth map obediently fell into Yu Haoran's hands and was directly transferred to his consciousness space. The pagoda spirit suggested with an indifferent expression. With the help of her spirit-devouring soul physique and a map of the universe that can restrict opponents in a large area, Yunxiang will be one of your most capable helpers in the future. All right. In the memories of the Destiny Stone Tablet, the detailed introduction of the map of the universe had already given Yu Haoran the idea of giving it to Yunxiang. Therefore, after hearing Thowling's suggestion, he nodded without hesitation. Then, after taking back control of his body from Thowling, Yu Haoran raised his head and looked at the milky white energy that came crashing down like raging waves. His eyes revealed a gratified and expectant look. With the help of such a large amount of lightning punishment rewards, the long-armed ape would be able to achieve a complete transformation in bloodline and strength and become a true expert of the prince's mansion. However, to his surprise, when the milky white energy that came crashing down was less than 100 meters away from the long-armed ape, a stream of milky white energy suddenly separated from it and rushed towards him directly. Yu Haoran, the spirit tribulation lightning punishment that is beyond the control of the heavenly Tao is the principle of fairness and justice. Faced with the sudden separation of the milky white energy, Thowling was not surprised at all and explained with a smile. Since you interfered with the spirit tribulation lightning punishment, it means that you are also someone who is going through the tribulation lightning punishment. Then, after you succeed, you will also be able to enjoy a portion of the spirit tribulation lightning punishment rewards. I see. As his doubts were cleared, Yuhaoran hurriedly bent his knees and sat cross-legged in the air. As he allowed the milky white energy to enter his body, he carefully experienced the effects of the spirit tribulation lightning punishment rewards. Immediately after, what made him go wild with joy was that the milky white energy rewarded by the spirit tribulation lightning punishment was specifically targeted towards the profound mysteries of laws, the fleshly body, and the grade of divine power. This made him immediately use his self-created heavenly fate mental cultivation method, and then focus on increasing the grade of divine power, as well as comprehending the power of spatial laws. Although the amount of spirit tribulation lightning's reward couldn't be compared to the long-armed ape's reward, the milky white energy that specifically increased the grade of his divine power allowed him to successfully advance to the early 9th level of the martial god realm in less than 3 minutes without touching the bottleneck of his cultivation and the god tribulation lightning's punishment. Furthermore, at the moment the spirit tribulation lightning punishment ended, the grade of his divine power finally reached the peak of the 9th grade martial god realm. The only regrettable thing was that the spirit tribulation, lightning 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 tribulation, lightning. Young friend, thank you. With the help of the baptism of the spirit tribulation lightning punishment and the rewards of the spirit tribulation lightning punishment, the long-armed ape had finally reached the peak of the 9th level of the divine realm. After a simple consolidation of his realm, he immediately flew up to Yuhaoran in the air and thanked him with eyes full of excitement. Senior, I've already said the same thing more than once. There's no need to be so courteous between us. Helping you is what I should do as a junior. After finishing his cultivation and getting up, Yuhaoran smiled and gestured to him. Then, he carefully sized up the long-armed ape, and a trace of anticipation and worry flashed in his eyes. Senior, how's the harvest from the spirit tribulation lightning punishment? Did your bloodline complete the final transformation? The peak of the 9th level of the divine realm, with the strength of a peak first tribulation sovereign. Not seeing the worry in Yuhaoran's eyes, the long-armed ape replied with a trace of dominance. If I use my ancestors' bloodline that has successfully transformed and use my bloodline's innate ability, even a peak third tribulation supremacy wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow from me. I might even be able to put up a fight against someone who has just entered the supremacy realm. After replying to this point, the long-armed ape looked past Yuhaoran and directly at the southern region, the Hengguan mountain range and Xianyang city in the southern region, and a scarlet and violent killing intent appeared in his eyes. Sizzle. After hearing the domineering reply of a long-armed ape, Yuhaoran could not help but gasp, because Yusiki, who had passed the immortal tribulation lightning punishment, also had the cultivation of a peak 9th level martial god, and at most had the strength of a peak first tribulation sovereign. Even if she used the matching martial skills of her special body constitution and the sage's emotionless mental cultivation method, she could only exert the strength of a peak second tribulation sovereign. Different body constitutions, different divine tribulation lightning punishment, the final harvest of strength was so different. This made Yuhaoran extremely shocked, and at the same time, envious of the strength and luck of the innate living beings. However, after seeing the tyrannical look in the long-armed ape's eyes, he couldn't help but start to worry. He was worried that the long-armed ape, which had successfully completed the ancestral awakening transformation, would become the same as its ancestors in ancient times. It would become an arrogant, tyrannical, fearless, and undisciplined world-destroying ape that wouldn't listen to any advice. Therefore, he had to continue to test the long-armed ape's character, and according to the changes in his character, decide his future attitude towards him, whether to continue to be selfless and friendly or deliberately keep a certain distance. Senior, since you have successfully passed the divine tribulation lightning punishment, why don't you return to the prince's mansion first, and then use the Xian Huang Qi in the mansion to continue to consolidate your cultivation? I will follow your arrangement. Fortunately, the long-armed ape not only quickly withdrew the violence in his eyes, but also his attitude and tone were more polite and more obedient than before. However, the good change of the long-armed ape filled Yu Haoran with doubts and confusion. Thouling, what's going on? When he asked Yusiki, Qing Feng, and the rest to return to the prince's mansion, Yu Haoran directly asked Thouling, who had a better understanding of the ancient long-armed ape. This is very normal. After hearing Yu Haoran's doubts, Thouling did not feel strange at all and explained with a smile. Yu Haoran, the birth of the 4 great spiritual monkeys in ancient times coincided with the end of the ancient demon tribe's rule over the ancient continent. It was also the time when the ancient god tribe, ancient demon tribe, and ancient underworld tribe were flourishing, and their hearts were restless. In the face of the 4 great spiritual monkeys, who were able to cause a change in the entire world when they were just born and would definitely become peak honorable experts in the future, regardless of whether it was the ancient demon tribe who wanted to continue to be the overlord or the few top races who wanted to replace them, all of them wanted to capture them alive and train them to be the strongest combat power of their own race. As spiritual creatures bred by heaven and earth, the 4 great spiritual monkeys already had mature intelligence when they were born. When faced with the few top races who wanted to capture them alive, how could they not resist fiercely? And how could they not take bloody revenge afterwards? Unfortunately, the outcome of going against the top race alone was not only to be besieged to death by countless experts, but also to be completely demonized afterwards. Chapter 1943. Feng Run City. Ever since Wu Zhenjun, Yusiki, Lu Yuan, the Scarlet Loathe, and the long-armed ape had successfully passed the God Tribulation Thunder Punishment and successfully advanced to the martial God Realm of Immortality. The entire Feng Run City had completely set off a cultivation frenzy of chasing each other. Other than Lan Rong and a few other generals who had to take some time to deal with the military affairs and intelligence accumulated in Feng Run City, the rest of the elite soldiers either used the formation that Yu Haoran had set up to extract the life essence from the bodies of powerhouses to improve their cultivation, or continued to invade other cities in the Great Han Empire to improve their strength. On the other hand, Qin Lingfei and Jian Wuhan, who were similarly unwilling to be outdone, or perhaps it could be said that they were stimulated, brought Yin Xiang, Feng Man, and Xiang Muling to a few dangerous places in the Eastern Territory to undergo adventuring and tempering. They wanted to use this opportunity to quickly improve their cultivation and strength and strive to not become a burden to Yu Haoran. In the prince's mansion, after a simple consolidation of his realm, Yu Haoran brought Yusiki and long-armed ape out of the prince's mansion and Feng Run City quietly. Then, he tore through the void and hurriedly rushed to one of the 4 guardian families of the Tianxian continent, the Blue Dragon clan, in the Green Forest mountain range between the East region and the Central region. This was because just 5 minutes ago, the Black Tortoise, who had secretly sought refuge with him in Jinyuan's graveyard, had used the top-notch communication jade talisman that they had left behind to inform him of a piece of news. It was that Ji Xing of the Yushu Temple, who had gathered nearly half of the forces and powerhouses in the Tianxian continent and formed the Heaven Alliance, had suddenly led an army to attack one of the 4 guardian families, the Blue Dragon clan. The expedition launched by Ji Xing of the Yushu Temple meant that the Tianxian continent had truly begun to enter a state of turmoil. At the same time, it also indicated that the half-tribulation supremes and supremes hidden in the endless void were about to return to the Tianxian continent. Whether it was the fake son of destiny of the Yushu Temple, Ji Xing, or the Blue Dragon, White Tiger, and vermilion bird clans of the guardian clans, Yu Howard didn't care about their survival at all. What he really cared about was whether the spirits of triple annihilation, who could control the consciousness of the heavens, would intervene in the battle between the two top forces at the last moment. What he really wanted was the deep heritage of the Blue Dragon clan, the White Tiger clan, and the Vermilion Bird clan that had been passed down for countless years. After all, if the people in the prince's mansion wanted to continue improving their cultivation and strength in a short period of time, they had to find ways to increase their experience, broaden their horizons, and improve their own accumulation. The deep heritage of the Blue Dragon clan, the White Tiger clan, and the Vermilion Bird clan could completely satisfy the needs of Yusiki, Wu Jingjun, and the others. This was also one of the important reasons why he temporarily didn't care about controlling the prince's mansion and returning to the southern region's 100-Chi Gate. The power of the law of space combined with the method of tearing the void allowed Yu Haoran's speed to increase by at least 10 times. This also reduced the time that would have taken at least half an hour to reach the Qingse mountain range by nearly 20 minutes. When Yu Haoran brought Yusiki and the long-armed ape to the summit of a mountain less than 100 miles away from the Qingse mountain range, he found that the two forces were still in a stalemate and were only testing each other's strength. Although Ji Xing used his fake identity as the Chosen One and the protection of the three Annihilators to gather nearly half of the forces and experts in the Tianxin continent, most of these forces and experts were just a bunch of mobs. For secluded families like the Lan clan, ancient families like the Zhou clan, and top sects like the Flowing Cloud sect, there weren't many martial gods and half-tribulation supreme martial artists. If it weren't for the fact that the Blue Dragon clan, the White Tiger clan, and the Vermilion Bird clan lost too many half-tribulation supreme martial artists in the Qinghu mountain range, and that their supreme ancestors couldn't return in time in a short period of time, the Heaven Alliance that Ji Xing had painstakingly built wouldn't have the strength to challenge the Guardian clans. Just as Yu Haoran used his divine thought that wasn't inferior to the peak of the First Tribulation Supreme Martial Artist realm to observe the situation of the two forces testing each other, Thaling's strange, surprised voice suddenly came from his sea of consciousness. "I didn't expect him to be here all this time." "Who is it?" Yu Haoran asked hurriedly. "The heaven-punishing demon emperor who escaped from Whitebone City. He is now a heaven-punishing demon god who is at the peak of the 9th grade martial god realm." Thaling replied with a hint of joy in his eyes. "He's not dead yet?" Yu Haoran asked doubtfully. Back then, in order to deal with the 4 Emperor Wu experts of the 4 great guardian clans, the heaven-punishing demon emperor who had just reached the Emperor Wu realm used his own flesh, divine soul, and life essence in exchange for the power of the god-slaying sword, which was full of evil devouring power. Although he succeeded in killing the 4 Emperor Wu experts of the 4 great guardian clans, the heaven-punishing demon emperor's life basically came to an end because of the evil devouring power of the god-slaying sword. This was also an important reason why he was willing to let the heaven-punishing demon emperor take away the god-slaying sword. After all, the heaven-punishing demon emperor was his disciple in name. Death. Seeing that Yu Haoran was still kept in the dark by the heaven-punishing demon god's method of death, Thaling could not help but mock him coldly. "Yu Haoran, since the beginning of the world, Thaling, have come into contact with all kinds of living beings. I have seen many heroes who were not afraid of death, many sinister and cunning villains, many arrogant and disrespectful heroes, and many treacherous hypocrites. However, I have never seen a person like the heaven-punishing demon emperor who is so attached to his life that he is close to madness. In my opinion, if you want him to willingly give up his life, unless the world falls and the stars change, he will do whatever it takes to survive." Thaling, didn't you say that the god-slaying sword, which has the evil devouring power, would eventually devour the heaven-punishing demon god until there is nothing left of him? Yu Haoran could not help but frown and question him after hearing Thaling's evaluation of the heaven-punishing demon god. "That's right." After nodding his head to confirm his initial speculation, Thaling replied to Yu Haoran's question with a cold smile. "Yu Haoran, If the heaven-punishing demon god was an upright person, he would definitely die tragically under the evil devouring power of the god-slaying sword. However, not only is he not an upright person, but he is also an unscrupulous and sinister hero. He used the life essence of the powerhouses of the Blue Dragon clan to offset the devouring power of the god-slaying sword on his own life essence. Then, he used a special secret technique to forcibly extract the life essence that the god-slaying sword could not consume in a short period of time to increase his cultivation and strength. After replying to this point, Thaling used the powerful divine consciousness of the Supreme Realm to check the heaven-punishing demon god from head to toe before continuing. Chapter 1944. Thaling, can you take back the immortal killing sword from the heaven-punishing demon Celestial? Howren was a little annoyed by the heaven-punishing demon Celestial's deception. However, when he thought of the fact that their relationship was only SOSO, he knew that the heaven-punishing demon Celestial had no obligation to tell him the truth. However, the heaven-punishing demon Celestial's deliberate deception also eliminated the last trace of pity he had for the heaven-punishing demon Celestial. It also made him determined to take back the immortal killing sword. If it were other supreme experts, they would probably be helpless against the heaven-punishing demon Celestial, who could stimulate the evil devouring power of the immortal killing sword. Then, Thaling, only need to move my finger. Faced with Howren's decision to take back the immortal killing sword, Thaling immediately replied confidently, "When will you do it?" Believing that Thaling could easily take back the immortal killing sword, Howren was even more eager to take back the immortal killing sword. Then, he would use the bloody battle between the Heavenly Alliance and the Guardian families to test the true power of the combination of the immortal killing, immortal eliminating, immortal trapping, and sword-killing swords. When the conflict between the Yushu Temple and the Guardian families erupts, I will take back the immortal killing sword secretly. If he wanted to take back the immortal killing sword by force, he would definitely encounter fierce resistance from the heaven-punishing demon Celestial. With the cultivation of the peak level 9 martial god, the heaven-punishing demon Celestial would delay taking back the immortal killing sword for at least 3 seconds. This would easily attract the attention of countless experts present. In order not to cause unnecessary trouble for Howren, after careful consideration, Thaling finally decided to wait for the best time to take action. Okay. After nodding in agreement with Thaling's plan to take back the immortal killing sword, Howren continued to focus on the two sides who were fighting. Whether it was the time of inheritance or the depth of accumulation, the Heavenly Alliance, which was temporarily established, was a far cry from the Guardian families, which had been passed down since ancient times. Therefore, in the 9 consecutive battles, except for Emperor Wu, who was a peak level 9 expert from the Lan family, who won by a narrow margin, the rest of the battles were all won by the Guardian families. Furthermore, every expert who failed died tragically under the ferocious attacks of the Guardian families. Originally, he wanted to send experts from top sects and itinerant cultivators to continue probing. However, Ji Xing, who suddenly received the order from Tao Lord Vastar, immediately took out a large flag embroidered with countless names and ordered the more than 1 million experts of the Heavenly Alliance behind him. All-out attack. Ji Xing's sudden order for an all-out attack not only caused the experts of the Guardian families to feel disbelief. Even people like Howren who wanted to take advantage of the situation were also puzzled. It was because according to the battle habits of the Tianxian land, the final outcome of the battle would be decided through the battle between the top elite warriors of each powerhouse. In this way, not only could they reduce the losses of the winning side, they could also capture more captives from the losing side and obtain more cultivation resources and treasures. As the master of the Yushu Temple's heavenly palace and the leader of the Heavenly Alliance, Ji Xing must be very clear about the rules of war that have been going on for countless years. Then why did he suddenly change his course of action? Soul-locking banner. Thaling, who also did not understand why Ji Xing suddenly gave the order for an all-out attack, gradually shifted his attention from the chaotic battle of the millions of people to the flag in the other party's hand. When Thaling saw the countless names embroidered on the flag and felt the fluctuations of fate emanating from each name, he suddenly thought of the Destiny Stone Tablet, which was also engraved with countless names of living beings, and the Destiny Stone Tablet control over the lives of living beings. A very vicious, forbidden magic weapon immediately flashed through his mind. Thaling, what is the soul-locking banner? When he heard Thaling shout out the origin of the flag in Ji Xing's hand, Yu Haoran hurriedly checked the memory inheritance of the Destiny Stone Tablet. However, he did not find any information about the soul-locking banner, so he could not help but ask. Yu Haoran, the so-called soul-locking banner, uses the energy of the law of trapping to directly extract all the fate gathered by living beings, and then uses the power of the law of destruction to bind the fate and soul. Looking at the flag in Ji Xing's hand and the names embroidered on the flag, Thaling explained with a grave expression. In this case, through control of the soul-locking banner, Ji Xing can decide the life and death of every name left on the flag using the power of the law of destruction. After hearing Thaling's explanation, Yu Haoran could not help but frown and speculate. Thaling, according to your explanation just now, isn't the soul-locking banner and the Destiny Stone Tablet exactly the same? That's right. While nodding to confirm Yu Haoran's speculation, Thaling's eyes flashed with a trace of fierce killing intent as he continued to explain. In fact, the soul-locking banner was created by the strongest of the three spirits of annihilation, Tao Lord Scorching Sun, based on the Destiny Stone Tablet that appeared in ancient times, and at least hundreds of millions of living beings were killed when ancient times were destroyed. But there's a difference between the two. That is, the Destiny Stone Tablet is formed from the fates of billions of living beings, while the soul-locking banner is artificially refined. The Destiny Stone Tablet can control fate, while the soul-locking banner can directly take a person's life. Therefore, the Destiny Stone Tablet represents orthodoxy, while the soul-locking banner represents evil. Yu Haoran was not interested in the difference between orthodoxy and evil at all. He was now worried about whether the Blue Dragon Clan, White Tiger Clan, and Vermilion Bird Clan could withstand the siege of a group of powerhouses who had no choice but to risk their lives under the threat of the soul-locking banner. Yu Haoran, if the supreme ancestors of the Guardian clans do not return in time, and at the same time lose the help of the Black Tortoise Clan who is proficient in formations. Thaling's spiritual sense quickly scanned the battlefield and directly gave the final fate of the Guardian clans. Then, the Blue Dragon Clan, White Tiger Clan, and Vermilion Bird Clan will definitely be exterminated today, and the history of the four great Guardian clans ruling the profound Sky Continent will also completely come to an end. Thaling, with your current strength, can your spiritual sense directly check the situation of the White Tiger Clan and Vermilion Bird Clan? Hearing Thaling's final judgment of the fate of the Guardian clans, while Yu Haoran lamented the impermanence of the affairs of the world, he also immediately realized that the opportunity to obtain the resources of the other two Guardian clans had arrived. However, before taking action, he still needed to confirm the methods that the White Tiger Clan and Vermilion Bird Clan had prepared beforehand. Yu Haoran, let your second doppelganger who is proficient in formations accompany Siki to the Vermilion Bird Clan, and let your first doppelganger bring the strongest long-armed ape to the White Tiger Clan. After interacting with each other for so many years, how could Thaling not guess Yu Haoran's intentions? Therefore, he immediately mobilized the space-time energy and chaos imprint of his main body, Victor, to assist his spiritual sense. After carefully searching the White Tiger Clan and Vermilion Bird Clan from the inside out, he took the initiative to come up with a plan to steal the accumulated resources of the two great clans. Chapter 1945. Yu Haoran brought Yusiki and the long-armed ape to a quiet valley by tearing open the void and temporarily distancing themselves from the two parties who were fighting. Thowling used his powerful divine sense to confirm that there was no danger within 1,000 miles of the mountain range. Howard immediately summoned his first and second doppelganger from the victor and introduced them to Usiki and the long-armed ape respectively. Usiki, who had successfully unlocked the inherited memories of the two Supremes from the ancient and recent times, knew about the I-Chi turning Trinity technique created by Supreme's Lier. Therefore, she quickly accepted and adapted to the three identical Howard. As for the long-armed ape, who did not know about Supreme's Laozi and the I-Chi turning Trinity technique, he was constantly sizing up the three identical Howard in front of him. He was unable to calm down the shock in his heart for a long time. It was also difficult for him to accept the fact that he had an independent consciousness and physical body, but was only a doppelganger. This was because there were still some half-tribulation Supreme old ancestors of the Guardian clans hidden in the endless void, as well as the ancestors of the Supremes, as well as 4 divine beasts whose cultivation had reached the peak of the Supreme's realm in the ancient times. Therefore, in order to safely steal the accumulated resources of the White Tiger clan and the Vermilion Bird clan, not only did they need to steal at lightning speed, but they also needed to ensure that they did not reveal any traces of themselves. This required both parties to have mutual trust in each other. After the long-armed ape recovered from his shock and was able to accept the 3 identical versions of himself, Howard told Usiki and the long-armed ape in detail about the plan to steal the accumulated resources of the White Tiger clan and the Vermilion Bird clan. Usiki and the long-armed ape did not hesitate in the slightest. Instead, they nodded excitedly and directly led the 2 doppelganger to the White Tiger clan and the Vermilion Bird clan respectively. After Usiki and the long-armed ape left the valley with their clones, Howard returned to the mountain peak by tearing the void. After that, he immediately put on the mask that he had obtained from the thief sect's treasury and used the secret technique that Thowling had taught him to change his aura. Then, he directly rushed to the battlefield 100 miles away. Regardless of whether it was the Guardian families formed by the Blue Dragon clan, the White Tiger clan, or the Vermilion Bird clan, or the Heaven Alliance formed by Ji Xing, they were all his enemies who would not rest until he was dead. Therefore, after entering the battlefield openly, Howard only had one way to deal with it, no matter who his opponent was, and that was to use his powerful strength to directly kill his opponent. When martial gods and half-tribulation supreme experts attacked, the destructive power and lethality they caused was too great. It was very easy for them to accidentally injure their companions and destroy the mountain range where the Blue Dragon clan was located. Helpless, they could only choose to fight in the void tens of thousands of meters above. Therefore, Howard, who had the strength of a peak first tribulation supreme, was like a ferocious tiger that had pounced into a flock of sheep. He quickly killed his way to the front of the Guardian formation that led to the Blue Dragon clan's encampment. He continued to attack the experts from the Guardian families with all his strength while waiting for Thowling to break the Guardian formation that guarded the mountain gate. Although the Guardian formation set up by the Blue Dragon clan had reached the level of a Supreme, it only lasted for less than 3 minutes in front of Thowling, who was a master of formations, before he easily broke through a gap. After secretly using the spatial teleportation rule martial technique to avoid everyone's attention, Howard quietly passed through the gap in the Guardian formation and easily entered the Blue Dragon clan's encampment. What rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth! The moment he entered the encampment, the pure spiritual energy of heaven and earth that had condensed into a white mist made him sigh involuntarily. Howard, there are at least 3 level 1 lower spiritual veins, 2 level 1 middle spiritual veins, and 1 level 1 upper spiritual vein sealed under the mountain range where the Blue Dragon clan is located. Just as Howard was sighing about the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the Blue Dragon clan's encampment, Thowling, who had used his divine thought to search the entire encampment, reminded him excitedly. Not to mention the rich spiritual energy mist. It's not impossible to directly transform it into innate spiritual energy in the form of mist. Thowling, Do you think we should go to the Sutra Depository and the Treasure Vault first, or immediately take the 6 divine veins underground? After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yu Haoran felt very excited, but at the same time, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Based on what he had comprehended when he successfully comprehended the spatial laws, he knew that his opportunity to break through to the supremacy stage lay in the southern region's 100 feet sect. Therefore, he planned to move the Prince Consort's mansion to above the 100 feet sect. However, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the area where the 100 Chi Gate was located was too thin. It was not suitable for the people in the prince's mansion and the 100,000 elite soldiers to cultivate and break through. Therefore, he needed to use a formation that could gather the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to forcefully improve the spiritual energy environment of the 100 Chi Gate. Originally, he had planned to go to the Death Swamp, one of the 10 great forbidden zones, and take the risk to search for a level 1 lower spiritual vein to use as the foundation for the formation that gathered the spiritual energy. At the same time, he would think of a way to use divine elixirs to exchange for 80 level 2, level 3, level 4, and level 5 spiritual veins. Together with the level 1 lower spiritual vein, he would be able to set up a formation that could reverse the power of heaven and earth, completely changing the environment of the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. However, there were more divine veins underground, and they were of a higher grade. Therefore, he didn't need to take the risk to go to the Death Swamp, and he could immediately control the prince's mansion to return to the 100 Chi Gate in the southern region. Yu Haoran, the 6 divine veins underground are not only the foundation of the Blue Dragon Clan's residence, but also the source of energy for the defensive formation. Although he didn't know why Yu Haoran was troubled by such a simple choice, Thaling still explained patiently. If we take the 6 divine veins now, it will immediately cause the entire mountain range to collapse, and it will definitely alarm the 2 sides that are fighting. This way, we won't have the time or opportunity to go to the Sutra Depository and the Treasure Vault. Thaling, I'm sorry, I've been too focused. Thaling's patient explanation made Yu Haoran immediately realize that he had cared too much about returning to the southern region and wanted too much to change the environment of the 100 Chi Gate, causing a flaw that shouldn't have appeared in his mental state. Therefore, after using his powerful mental state to erase this flaw, he solemnly apologized to Thaling. It's fine. After waving his hand to indicate that it was fine, Thaling immediately pointed out the direction to the Sutra Depository and the Treasure Vault, and then reminded Yu Haoran to go there as soon as possible. Without any hesitation, Yu Haoran immediately followed Thaling's instructions and used the law of space martial technique to quickly approach the Treasure Vault. Unlike most treasure vaults in the Tianxian continent, the Blue Dragon Clan's Treasure Vault only had 3 floors, but the area it occupied was about the size of a third-rate sect. Chapter 1946. In the residence of the Blue Dragon Clan. Looking at the antique 3-story treasury in front of him, Yu Haoran, who had used the power of the law of space to temporarily hide in the trunk of a big tree 30 meters away from the treasury, revealed a solemn expression in his eyes. As a clan that had inherited the bloodline of the Blue Dragon, a peak honorable divine beast from ancient times. Even if the honorable realm ancestor hiding in the endless void had not returned for the time being, even if the entire clan was in danger of being exterminated, in the face of the deep foundation that had been accumulated for countless years, Thaling did not dare to let down his guard at all. Therefore, when Yu Haoran was hiding in the trunk of the big tree with the help of the law of space, Thaling used the powerful divine sense of a peak 3rd-grade honorable to carefully check the surroundings within 1,000 meters of the treasury 3 times. At the same time, he also used his powerful formation energy to find a flaw in the treasury's defensive formation in a short period of time, and carefully check the situation on the 1st floor of the treasury's hall. After confirming that the treasury was 100% safe, he signaled to Yu Haoran that he could leave the big tree that he was hiding in temporarily, and then directly sneak into the treasury through the gap in the formation's defensive formation that he had opened. However, just when Yuhaoran was about to leave the big tree and enter the treasury happily, the doomed spirit mouse in the space in his heart suddenly told him that there was a terrifying expert hiding in front of the treasury's door that he did not dare to collect the aura of fate of the other party. Moreover, as the other party's strength was too strong and the aura of fate was too strange, it caused him to be unable to determine the other party's true cultivation and origin through the Destiny Stone tablet. With the help of the 12 divine fiends formation set up by the ancient demon clan, as well as the long-armed ape's spiritual tribulation lightning punishment and lightning punishment reward, he had successfully raised his mental state cultivation, physical grade, divine power, and soul power to the limit of a peak 9th grade martial god, and did not need the remaining chaotic spiritual energy for the time being. Therefore, in order to be able to control the fate of more top experts, he gave all the remaining chaotic spiritual energy to the doomed spirit mouse, and let the doomed spirit mouse use it to raise his own level. The Calamity Spirit Mouse had already reached the peak of the 3rd Tribulation Supremacy Realm with the help of the chaotic spiritual energy converted from the 5 elements Connate Crystal. The fate of any living being below the Supremacy Realm was already in his control. To be able to make the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat, who had reached the pinnacle of the 3rd Tribulation Supreme Being Realm, not even daring to collect the aura of an expert, was enough to show that the other party's cultivation had not only reached the Supreme Being Realm, but the level of the Supreme Being Realm was probably very high, at least at the 7th grade Supreme Being Realm. Yuhaoran, are you sure that the life-stealing spirit mouse's senses are correct? After hearing Yuhaoran's solemn reminder, Thaling immediately mobilized his victor's space-time energy and Mark of Chaos to re-examine the situation in front of the 3rd floor's door. But what was the result of the examination? He still did not discover anything. He could not help but begin to suspect that the life-bane spirit mouse's ability to sense the aura of fate was off. No, as the master of the Destiny Steel, Yuhaoran knew that the steel contained the aura of fate of all living beings in the world. Any change in the aura of fate within the steel could not escape the doomed spirit mouse's senses. As a result, he shook his head and rejected Thaling's question with a grave expression. Because when I used the power of the laws of space to stealthily approach the door of the treasury, my 6th sense immediately gave me a strong and fatal warning. So I believe in the doomed spirit mouse's judgment. Yuhaoran, what should we do next? Since he could not use his soul to determine the exact location and whereabouts of the other party, he could not easily enter the treasury through the gap in the formation in front of the door. For a moment, Thaling did not know what to do. Wait! He turned around and glanced at Yuhaoran, who had a sliver of joy in his eyes, and gloated. When the snipe and the clam fight, I'll think of a way to benefit. Yuhaoran's gloating reminder made Thaling immediately mobilize his soul to observe the situation behind him. Soon, he discovered the 3 half-tribulation supremes from the Heavenly Alliance. He immediately understood what Yuhaoran meant when he said that the snipe and the clam fight, the fisherman would benefit. As a result, Thaling, whose eyes were also filled with a sliver of gloating, immediately used his soul's special secret technique to strictly monitor the area within 100 meters of the treasury. He wanted to see if there was a deviation in the doomed spirit mouse's aura of fate, or if there was a mistake in his inspection because he was not strong enough. They did not have to wait for long. In just a dozen seconds, a peak 3rd Tribulation Supremes silently appeared in front of the treasury door with 2 peak 2nd Tribulation Supremes companions. After carefully inspecting several times with their soul's soul and confirming that there was no danger, the 3 half-tribulation supremes carefully removed the magic treasures that concealed their bodies and auras. Then, they looked at the antique 3-story treasury in front of them with excited expressions. Subsequently, an old man in a green robe appeared in front of the treasury door in a flash. He sat down cross-legged and began to inspect and crack the defensive formation that led to the treasury. In order to verify whose judgment was wrong, Thaling had left a gap in the formation that led to the treasury. Therefore, the green-robed old man, who was proficient in formations, quickly discovered the abnormality in the formation of the treasury. Oh no, someone has entered the treasury in advance. Through the gap in the defensive formation that Thowling had opened in advance, the green-robed old man suddenly opened his eyes and reminded loudly, with a sudden change in expression, when he saw a large number of top spiritual stones and spiritual meridians, as well as special crystals and treasures on the first floor of the treasury. After hearing the green-robed old man's reminder, the two half-tribulation supremes did not hesitate and appeared in front of the treasury door in a flash. Then, according to the gap in the defensive formation that the green-robed old man had pointed out, they rushed into the treasury as fast as lightning. However, just as the peak third tribulation supremes were about to enter the treasury through the gap in the defensive formation, a tongue appeared out of thin air and directly entangled the peak third tribulation supremes. Then, it quickly dragged the peak third tribulation supremes into a bloody mouth that also appeared out of thin air. After seeing the tongue and mouth that appeared out of thin air and easily swallowed the strongest companion, the green-robed old man and his companion did not hesitate at all. They immediately turned around and wanted to quickly escape the treasury. However, the tongue that stretched out again and instantly entangled them with the barrier of space and time. Then, it also dragged them into the bloody mouth. This is a blood-void beast that contains the energy of the spatial laws. When the long tongue that appeared out of thin air in front of the treasury entangled the peak third tribulation supremes, Thowling, who had fought with them before, had already recognized the other party's origin. At the same time, he finally understood how the other party could avoid his soul's detection. Chapter 1947. In the residence of the Blue Dragon clan, in front of the treasure vault on the third floor. The blood-void beast was a powerful spiritual beast born from the origin of blood. It was an existence similar to the empty spirit rat and the life-stealing spirit rat. The blood-void beast fed on the scattered spatial rules of energy. It was the only existence in the world, and also one of the few existences in ancient times that could completely suppress the 10 great ferocious beasts, including the ferocious beast She, which even the rules of heaven could not do anything about. Usually, the blood-void beast lived in the turbulence of the spatial fault and used the turbulence to train its body, which was comparable to a heavenly treasure. It would only leave the spatial fault and appear in front of the world when it sensed the fluctuation of the spatial rules of energy. As Thowling's original body, the space-time victor stored a large amount of spatial and spatial rules of energy. There was a very fierce conflict between them in ancient times. The final outcome of the conflict was that the previous weapon spirit of the space-time victor had no choice but to pay the price of self-destruction to perish together with the blood-void beast. Originally, Thowling, who had received all the memories of the previous weapon spirit, thought that it was impossible for a blood-void beast that could use the spatial rules of energy to appear in this world. After all, the great calamity of ancient times had caused the complete destruction of the rules of fate, time, space, trapping, and destruction. Unless there was a living being who could comprehend the spatial rules of energy again and gradually advance it to the profound mystery of the spatial rules of energy, then use great perseverance and wisdom to gather the scattered fragments of the spatial rules of energy again. Only then could the spatial rules of energy reappear in the world. After experiencing the changes of the ancient, middle, and recent ancient times, Thowling knew that other than Yuhauran, no other living being could successfully comprehend the spatial rules of energy. In the absence of the spatial rules of energy, it was impossible for the world to breed a blood-void beast that had reached the supremacy level. Therefore, the blood-void beast that appeared in front of the treasure vault could only be the one that had been born in ancient times. Although Thowling did not know how the blood-void beast had survived the self-destruction of the previous weapon spirit, he knew that Yuhauran's plan to steal the rich heritage of the Blue Dragon clan had been foiled. This was because he had no way of dealing with the blood-void beast for the time, being before his cultivation recovered to the peak of 9th grade sovereign. There were very few records of the blood foe beast in the memories of the Destiny Stone Steel, so Yu Haoran could not help but fall into deep thought after hearing Thaling's detailed introduction. In a situation where the life-stealing spirit, Rat, couldn't control the other party's fate, and Thaling wasn't a match for the other party, he should have immediately given up on the plan to steal the treasures in the treasury. However, Yu Haoran vaguely felt that something was amiss when the blood void beast swallowed the three half-tribulation supreme beings of the Heavenly Alliance with its tongue and mouth. Through the power of spatial laws, he discovered that when the blood void beast's tongue and mouth appeared out of thin air, a faint spatial ripple had appeared in front of the treasure vault. This was too abnormal for a blood void beast that could use the energy of the spatial laws. After all, with his current understanding of the power of spatial laws, he could make the space completely still when he used the spatial laws martial technique of teleportation. At the same time, based on Thaling's introduction of the blood void beast's habits, the fact that it could guard the Blue Dragon clan's treasure vault meant that there must be a spatial treasure in the treasure vault that could attract the blood void beast. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, Yu Haoran finally decided to take the risk and break into the treasure vault. After hearing Yu Haoran's speculation about the blood void beast's real situation, Thaling finally nodded in agreement with Yu Haoran's decision to take the risk after careful consideration. However, before taking the risk, he had to be fully prepared. Therefore, after gesturing to Yu Haoran for a while, Thaling returned to the top floor of the victor's main body and returned to the space in his sea of consciousness with 9 light purple formation flags. Then, he mobilized the space-time energy in the victor's main body and silently placed the 9 light purple formation flags in different positions in front of the treasure vault. After fusing the condensed seal with the 9 light purple formation flags, he gestured to Yu Haoran to take action. Taking a deep breath, Yu Haoran took out the celestial trapping sword that could increase the power of spatial martial techniques. Then, he left the tree where he was hiding and approached the door of the treasure vault step by step. When he reached the door of the treasure vault and pretended to charge through the gap in the defensive formation, the long tongue, which had disappeared, appeared behind Yu Haoran out of thin air. Spatial cut. The moment the long tongue appeared, Yu Haoran, who had sensed the spatial ripple, turned around abruptly and immediately used the spatial law martial technique that he had prepared beforehand. Bang, bang, bang. Countless spatial blades formed by the spatial cut slashed at the long tongue just as it was about to attack. Accompanied by a series of clashing sounds, the spatial blades that could easily cut through the void were bounced off by the long tongue's defense. This alone proved that Thaling's understanding of the blood void beast was real. Yu Haoran did not panic at all. He immediately mobilized the power of the spatial law and forced it into the celestial trapping sword in his hand. Then, he directly used a spatial law martial technique that he had yet to truly master, the hanging sword slash. Perhaps it was because of the great pressure brought about by the blood void beast, or perhaps it was because he had not relaxed his understanding of the power of the spatial law. In the end, he successfully used the hanging sword slash with the help of the celestial trapping sword. The sharp sword chi that instantly appeared in front of the long tongue slashed at the tip of the tongue. Poof! Accompanied by a tearing sound, the sharp sword chi broke through the strong defense of the tip of the tongue and cut a wound about 5 centimeters long on the tip of the tongue. Then, a crystal-clear, white energy flowed out of the wound on the tip of the tongue. Pure energy of the spatial law. Seeing the white energy flowing out of the wound on the tip of the tongue, Yu Haoran's eyes flashed with surprise. He immediately used the spatial law martial technique of teleportation and appeared in front of the tip of the tongue in an instant. With a wave of his sleeve, he swept away all the white energy that flowed out. At the same time, he activated the full power of the celestial trapping sword and stabbed it into the wound on the tip of the tongue that had lost its defense. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Accompanied by a shrill squeal that sounded like a mouse, the void in front of the treasure vault suddenly shattered like a mirror. Then, a pure white mouse that looked very similar to the empty spirit mouse and the life-stealing spirit mouse appeared in front of Yu Haoran. You're tuning into the warrior lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.